PM, I would like to, oh, sorry. Okay, it is 7:01 PM. I would like to call to order the January 9th regular town council meeting to order. Can we please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it should be a approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda? I don't believe so. Oh, roll call. So sorry. Could you please do roll call, Susan? Sorry, miss.
Here.
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 Council Gable.
Here.
Council Page.
Here.
Council Ford. Here. Deputy Mayor Rada. Here. Council Tiniakos.
Here.
Mayor Trista.
Here. Thank you, Susan. Moving on now to approval of the agenda. I don't think there's anything to change. Anybody have any changes or issues?
No.
Okay, so we're all set. All right, so we have some presentations for today. The first one on the list is, oh, I'm so sorry.
I'll approve. Thank you.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Susan.
Yes.
It takes a team,
Sorry,
it takes a village.
skipping ahead too fast. Alright. So now we're moving on to presentations. First one on our list is our annual update on blighted premises. Mr. Hinckley, would you like to come on up? Thank you.
Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Eric Hinckley, Assistant Town Planner and Blight Enforcement Officer. Welcome all council members, the new ones that I haven't given the presentation to before, and the old ones as well. Welcome back.
Yes, there you go. Veteran would be okay. Yeah.
Strike that from the record. I believe you've been given a small packet that includes basically an outline of the blight process and then some other information. So I want to just kind of run through the blight process for those of you that haven't dealt with it before, and just as kind of a refresher for the other members of council. So the first item is the complaint is received, whether it comes in, somebody into the counter, via email, phone call, whatever. And each one of those, after a complaint is received, each one is inspected, even though some people say, well, it is blight, and I still go out and inspect. I've gotten calls for something as minor as, somebody's kids' toys are in the backyard. Stuff like that. So I do go out and verify if it's blight. Sometimes it's blight, sometimes it's unfounded. Sometimes it's really a zoning issue. And if that's the case, then I take appropriate action on that side. If there's somebody around on the property I can make contact with, I try and have a conversation with them while I'm there. If not, typically I'll photo document it, and then a notice of violation is sent to the property owner. And that's just a warning letter. It kind of explains what the violation is, a time frame for getting it rectified. They can contact me to have a discussion. I'll meet them on site. There's also an appeal process, isn't everything? So they can appeal to the local hearing officer if they feel it's unjust or, not warranted. And that can obviously extend the blight process because it is a process and it does take time. If the violation isn't corrected or they're taking no action, then a citation is actually sent, which is basically a fine. Again, that is appealable, and we can go through that whole process. I had one a couple years ago where every letter I sent was appealed, so dragged it out for a few months. As part of the citation process, I have to research the land records and see any open mortgages or judgments against a property owner, they have to get notified as well. That citation a copy gets sent to them as well. Again, if no action is taken, we have a meeting with the town manager, the assessor, the finance director, and I make a presentation to them, and they decide whether to add it to the blight list if it's warranted. Then they get a 10-day notice sent to them that they're getting added to the blight list. And again, they still have time to do things. And at some point, the remediation order is sent and the right of entry, which would give us the right to go and clean the property and lien the property as needed. Typically, after the remediation takes place, we do send a bill to the property owner, and they have a period of time to pay it. If they choose not to pay it, then we do file the lien. Special assessments get issued, and et cetera. So the process can take time. It's not always, some people are very forthcoming and take care of things right away. They didn't realize it, or it's just a matter of, oh, we were going to take care of that and we just lost track of time, or weather events. It happens. So again, these are just, typical process, and it can go as fast as 2 weeks, or it can drag out for years. In some cases, we do have to get the town attorney involved and go to court. Currently, I do have one open remediation order from a judge. So we'll see how that plays out. And then just some other notes, just again, to keep you guys aware in the loop. Some complaints are really deemed unfounded. There are some houses where every couple of months I get the same complaint, probably from the same person, but I do follow up. I just mark it as unfounded. But obviously, every time I get it, it kind of drops further down the list of, when I'm going to go out and look at it, because it's a big issue now is bulk pickup, mattresses, stuff like that get brought to the curb. Technically, it's blight, but it's in the town right away, so I really don't have any purview to tag a property owner, because some property owners say, well, I didn't put it there, it got dumped there, which does happen on occasion. So those cases get referred over to the sanitation department, and they'll send out notices and do whatever they need to do to try and remediate that. Again, like I previously discussed, a lot of the complaints that come in as blight are really zoning, and they're just handled accordingly. There are some cases overlap of some blight things in zoning, so I kind of make a determination of which is the best course of action. Some issues that are not blight or zoning are fence line and property line issues that we get a lot of calls on. Somebody's leaning something against the fence. My neighbor is. It's my fence. Okay. It's a civil matter. Also, trees that appear to be dead. I can't compel anyone to cut a tree down. I have no zoning regulation with which to do that. Now, if someone trims a tree and there's stuff piled around, it's debris, and we can try and get that cleaned up. But again, tree issues, private matters. If it looks like it's in the town right away or close, I'll notify the tree warden, and they can take a look at it and make that determination. Again, any notice or citation I sent has an appeal process through the local hearing officer, so that can obviously extend time on any kind of blight case. And the same thing is if we end up in court. Property owners that have potential financial issues are referred to human services. And if that's the case, I kind of take a step back and let them go through the process with human services, see if we can get some of that stuff taken care of with Carol and other things. And sometimes that works well. Sometimes, like anything else, it doesn't work as well. The other thing right now is currently the last few years, town forces have not been available to cut grass in those cases. I've had to go out and hire contractors. And the same with remediation. We haven't done one where the town forces have done that. So that increases costs on, for liens and stuff like that potentially. So last year, I think you see we opened 45 blight cases. 50. Obviously, that was overlap from other years. And there's probably still another dozen or so open currently. One other note, last year, there were filed on land records in Newington were 55 notices of registration and foreclosures for single family homes. So a lot of times those will fall under the blight list, and then dealing with, foreclosure company in Salt Lake City is obviously a little difficult to try and get somebody out here. They are supposed to have usually these filings contain a local contact, but it still has to go through a process to get somebody out there to clean it up. So really, that's about it. If you guys have any questions, I will certainly be glad to answer them.
Do you have any questions, Counselor? Counselor Draco?
Yeah, Eric, first of all, it's you alone, right? Basically.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I have, Paul, the town planner, is my boss, but he's doing other things as well. So yes.
And well, you're doing a good job. I have a question now. For some of these, I know in the past, I guess probably at the zoning meetings, it was discussed that when you had time, staff used to kind of like ride around and be proactive in blight, but right now, based on staffing and resources, you're more reactive.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Doing it what you suggest, picking areas, you do kind of have to be careful, because you have to, if you're going to pick an area, you can't keep going back to the same area. You have to go and do the whole town before you get to this area again, whatever area it is, because you don't want to be seen as just concentrating on a certain neighborhood or a certain area of town.
Another question I get from people is, can the complaints be anonymous?
They can, yes. Yeah, they can come into the counter, they can fill out a form as anonymous. They can do it through Civic Plus online. And kind of, information. I mean, because, those can be FOI'd, I assume, any kind of form. So.
And just when we're, related to that, if a complaint is not anonymous and you go out and, investigate it, do you get back to the complainer?
On occasion I do. Sometimes I just honestly forget, or I don't have time. I mean, I can try and be a little better about that, but
Sometimes we get fallback saying, I know I contacted blah, 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 and never heard back. And then they're not cognizant of the fact that maybe it was unfounded or not within your purview. So, yeah, maybe if you can shoot an email or
Sure.
something back. Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
Counselor Floyd?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Hinckley. That was a very helpful presentation as a new member. So thank you. Just one question I had, and thank you for all the work that you do. Clearly, it's a high volume of work that you do. Without getting necessarily to the specifics of this specific case, I'm just curious.
Yep.
This 679 Willard Avenue, this is on the third page of our packet.
I'm not sure we should put the addresses out in public. I think that's a confidentiality issue. I think we should keep those offices secret. And not secret, but confidential.
No mistake then. Just, there are perhaps others that this would fall under, don't enforce town ordinances. I just want a sense of what that means.
Oh, there have been complaints in the past. That is one I forgot to discuss. The town ordinances, particularly noise. Noise is a town ordinance. It's not a zoning regulation. I do not enforce it. So anything that is a town ordinance, it's not enforced by the zoning office. That's, there's stuff in the ordinance about who would direct, who would handle that. And again, the biggest one we typically get is noise. It gets flipped over to me, and I try to explain to them. And for construction activities, there's limited stuff about the hours that they can work, but I have nothing to do with how loud it may or may not be. But there is an ordinance on the books that the town can enforce if they choose to do so.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Counselor Mackey?
Yes, yeah, couple of quick questions. Again, thank you for your efforts in this. I think it's important that town, if blight gets out of control, it makes everybody's property values go down. And nobody wants to drive around and see, piles of tires in the front yard of anybody's house. Certainly if you live next to those houses, you don't want to see the tires. Look out in the snow and see them covered with snow. The hearing, you said if they have want to appeal it, there's a hearing officer. Who's the hearing officer?
Currently, it's Rodney Mortensen. You have space to appoint one other.
Okay, so maybe something we should probably look at, just to have more than one person available, just in case there's a question of availability. And just to make it clear, if the town hires a contractor to go out and mow the lawn, for instance, or clean up brush, we then bill the resident. Or
Typically, what we do with the contractors in the past is we pay them, we pay the contractor, and then we bill the homeowner and follow the same process. They can pay us back, or we'll leave the property.
Clean the property, right? Okay, thank you.
Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you for your work. Couple of questions. One is, you mentioned, and I don't know if I understood correctly, if people call because there's a mattress or something else out front, how often does that happen? And what's your sense of it? Is it that someone just drove by from any old place and dropped it, or possibly a neighbor put it out, but then no one claims it, or what?
I suspect a lot of people don't want to pay for the pickup. I mean, because to pick up a mattress and a box spring now is close to $100, I understand, because they charge you for the stop and then the thing, and people they bring all kinds of stuff to the curb and hope it just disappears.
Mhm.
And some of it will. And then, after a couple of weeks, the neighbors will start calling saying, hey, there's still a mattress out there along with a dresser or something like that. And
Okay. And just anecdotally, do you have a sense of, is that happening once a week, once a month, twice a year? I mean,
it happens at least once a week, probably, honestly. I mean, honestly, since we went to charge, people don't want to pay. It's, they want that service back, or we would, take it on. So, and once the claim gets sent over to sanitation, they can check and see if it's on the list. They can check, run the address, and they'll email me back pretty quickly and say, oh, this is on the list for 2 weeks out. Great. Or no, it's not on the list. We'll send a notice. And that's what happens. And there are times when I guess that the bulk pickup either misses it or whatever, and they'll get it the next week.
okay, thank you. I just had two other quick questions. The grass cutting, as Councilor Mangue referenced, is there ever a case, did I dream you or someone had mentioned that on a rare occasion, we work with neighbors to see if it's a person who's ill or they've got other issues, and a neighbor might say, hey, you know what, let me cut that, and we don't have to then enforce something.
Yeah, and I typically try and talk to people.
Yeah.
That has happened in some cases where a neighbor will mow it, and I'll get a call and say, oh, I mowed the grass or whatever. So yeah, it does happen.
Okay.
It's there. So I mean, there's a support system out there. We don't necessarily have, people are just going to go around and mow for everybody, but yeah.
And then the last question is just, you mentioned foreclosures. Again, numbers, do you mention a number? Is that, if you could please?
That's just the companies that filed their foreclosure registration for single family homes. There's others I didn't even put on the list for condominiums. And there are some that don't ever file them anyway. It's, even though they're required to. And I think of those 55, I think there's like 3 or 4 that were actually ended up on the list that you had.
Has that number been going up, or is it steady or going down? Or
I didn't compare it to the prior year, so I'm not positive.
thank you again for all your work. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Councilor.
Deputy Mayor Rada?
Yes, Eric, thank you so much for coming once again and giving us an update and some information. Couple of questions. You mentioned there is an appeal process. Can you just briefly talk about
So if someone appeals my notice of violation, it goes before the hearing officer. So I have to schedule that hearing, make sure everybody can attend. It's usually during business hours. Typically I have to coordinate with the town attorney as well, because they come to the appeal hearing. And basically they plead their case to the hearing officer. The hearing officer can uphold my decision. The hearing officer can basically come up with, hey, here's a plan of action for you. If you do these things by this date, I'll waive the citation. So, he tries to work with everyone as well. The last couple of years, I've had brought here a few cases. I think I've had 4 or 5 appeal cases. And most everybody complies. So,
We have apartment complexes in town, we have condos in town. How are those complaints?
so again,
Addressed.
I haven't had any in an apartment complex per se. And condominiums, if it's something, this is where we get into. So if somebody's saying, hey, there's a bunch of stuff and maybe it's piled up on HOA property, they're the ones that are gonna get the violation notice. So they're gonna try and figure out who's dumping stuff or whatever. So that's but typically I don't get too many calls on straight apartments or stuff like that. And if there is ever a case where I'm out on a blight because I don't go in the house, but if I feel it by looking at the exterior and whatnot, that it could be a potential hoarding issue, I refer it to the Safe Homes Task Force and they move forward with that.
And these are, I'm looking at the list, would not, apart from condo and apartments, are these all residential or how often do you get complaints from, complaints?
For properties,
from businesses?
yes, and a lot of times it's just tall grass or debris accumulating around some dumpsters, stuff like that, trash blowing around on site. And that's kind of inherent with large shopping plazas. Your Target, your Walmart, your stuff like that, your Sam's Club, you do have, papers and stuff that fly around. It's, I get those complaints and I go talk to the manager of the stores and they, they'll either send somebody to go do some cleanup, control once people are outside of their store in their parking lot and somebody wants to eat their chicken or whatever and, just drop everything. It's,
Resources are always scarce, including financial resources. In the grand scheme of things, or in a more perfect world, what are some needs that you would like to see to help the work that you do in relation to?
that's, a true enforcement officer would be helpful to handle enforcement for blight and zoning. So I can work on my other.
Juggling keeping all those balls in the air.
Keeps a lot of balls in the air, yes. To free me up to do other things and with planning, wetlands and the other open space, the other commissions and boards that we serve in the planning department.
Have we at any time, I don't know if those of you that have been on the council longer than have we had a blight officer in the recent or far past,
I don't believe so, no.
Again, it probably depends on the level of enforcement that council would like to see. If we put our magnifying glasses on and look at the blight ordinance, I could probably nick half of the houses on a given street. A torn screen is considered blight. I have a torn screen in my own house. I mean, it's so it's, again, it's a level of enforcement that the council would like to see. And sometimes, people will, especially during the winter months and they have nothing to do, they'll read the zoning regulations, blight regulations. And when spring starts up, with the grass and everything else, I get hammered with a lot of different calls. We're doing this, and this is right in your section. You need to enforce this. So there's, some things it's a judgment call. And what someone believes is blight in their own eyes, may not rise to the level of blight.
Thank you.
Counselor Tiagos.
Hey there. Thank you for what you do for the town. I appreciate it. As far as the whole process goes that you had mapped out earlier, in your opinion, do you think this is the most efficient way to go about handling blight? Is there anything in the process that you would change? Since you're the one doing it?
Honestly, everybody has to have their due process and, so you do have to give them these options they have to have these ways to appeal and stuff like that, I think it's could it be tweaked here and there? Probably, yes, and whether council wants to review that, again, that's fine. Again, when people, especially in the spring, when I get the call that, well, my neighbor didn't cut his grass yet. Okay, didn't cut his grass yet. I mean, and you go out there and look and it's, okay, it's shaggy. It's nowhere near a foot. Just because you cut your grass doesn't mean somebody else is on your same schedule. So, and then they don't understand why can't you get it cut in 3 days? The town's just going and cut it. Well, this is the process. And I've explained to people on the phone and they're like, well, that's ridiculous, but it's, it is what it is. Everybody, has that opportunity.
Great. Councilor Nagel?
Thank you. Thank you for being here also. Having been on the previous blight committee many times, I realize it's an art, things are not just black and white. So I appreciate what you do. Several questions just to clarify. You talked about contacts. In the past, neighbors, people in the area would come to me, call me and say, oh, I can make it anonymous. And they'll say, can you do it? Whatever. Do you, obviously we'd like to be anonymous too and giving them, but do you accept that? Is your policy to go to you or do we go through Jamie or?
If it's coming from you, I would suspect it would go through the town manager and then she can forward any concerns to me.
Just to filter that, so we still can do that, not that we're going to go out. That was certainly looking for it. Could you clarify, and I know part of this from past history, the view of blight? In other words, how can you go about identifying what is blight concerning the limits of where it actually is on a person's property? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, so typically I'm looking from the road, what I can see from the curtilage, what we call, and I can't, that's the other thing. People think I can just march on people's property and that's, illegal search and seizure, Fourth Amendment, someone would have to grant me permission. And I recently had somebody that I asked to go in his backyard. He said, no. I said, fine. So it is kind of what we can see and what is visible. And we've had a couple of, prior town managers who have agreed with that way of thinking and have viewed a couple of properties as well. And the same thing, I can't, just because someone calls and says there's something and they want to even send me pictures, not that I don't believe you, but I do have to kind of see it for myself and take pictures for myself because, that's just, the way that it is. It's the best way to protect the town and the process.
And it is an art. Concerning calls for blight, are many of them, or how many of them are there in terms of people not having the ability to pay to have it done, or not physically being able to do it and not having a relative or someone else in the household that is the landlord and able to take care of whatever blight is?
I haven't had too many people that have called and told me that. I know that there have been some that have reached out to Human Services because in our standard letter, it says, there's language in it that says, if you feel you have a financial hardship, please contact the Human Services Department and, see you may qualify for some assistance.
Okay, that was my next question, and I realize Human Services is going to maybe talk somewhat about how they're related to that. And last but not least, some people believe that snow and ice is blight. Can you clarify that?
It's not blight as far as I'm concerned. If it's a concern about clearing the sidewalks, again, that's an ordinance. And should call the sanitation department if a sidewalk is not cleared, and the highway department will move forward with what they need to there.
I knew you were going to say that, but I think it needs to be repeated because people tend to take that word blight to mean a lot of things that it isn't. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilor Draco?
Just one question. I'm not sure when the last time the blight ordinances have been revised or whatever, but in terms of your experience with enforcing them and, the codification, whatever, do you have any suggestions or wishes that you can bring forward to us that maybe there should be a revision? I mean, you don't have to answer now.
Yeah, I
but,
can consider that and discuss it with the planner and see if we can come up with something we
yeah,
can
because
submit.
I mean, they were written, a few years ago, but you're out there every day. And I think we'd all appreciate if perhaps you can bring your suggestions to us and maybe we can, help you out a little bit there.
Look at that in the future. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming tonight, Eric, and presenting to us. This is very, very informative, and especially for my first time, it was good to hear this. And,
Good.
we really appreciate your hard work for the town. We know you do basically 3 jobs, so we're very much appreciative of your efforts. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yep. Appreciate it. Yep. Moving on, next, under presentations, we have a presentation from the Human Services Department. So come on up, Mr. Brett.
Oops. Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me. I think many of you have ideas of bits and pieces of some of what we do. I'll try and go through a lot of it. So we have a youth and family counseling component. We are thrilled to say that we filled our position for our clinical services coordinator this past fall. Kayla Hendrickson, she's hit the ground running. Amazing energy, ability to establish rapport with youth and with families. She works closely with the schools, police, community. She receives referrals and provide herself or our contract therapist short-term counseling. And the majority of the cases would be kind of a analysis to connect to an outside resource for long-term services. She's developed curriculums for several different groups that can be offered in the schools. The schools have reported an issue with cannabis and cannabis offenses. And so we have a program that kind of looks at wellness and how substance use impacts that greater wellness and sport mindedness. And then kind of a support type group that she's established as well. We do the Juvenile Review Board. So the Juvenile Review Board is an opportunity for a youth who's been reported for a violation to have a one chance at not going to court, not having a record. We meet with the youth, the family, representatives from the schools, all of the schools, but in particular the school that the youth attends, DCF, juvenile court, and police. And we kind of explore the incident. We look at it from a restorative justice perspective. So how can we examine the impact that this incident had? How can the youth become aware, have that self-awareness of what their actions did? And then how can we develop a plan to prevent this kind of incident going forward and to keep this young person on a positive path? So we stay connected with the youth for 6 months and kind of work with them for, it might be a community service, it might be, we have one youth that actually was developing a program where he was doing power washing. So we try to look at what are the assets that the youth has and how can we expand on those. We have the Positive Youth Development and Adventure Program. So we are in the process of vetting a person for that position, the youth program coordinator. I'm excited. I'm hoping by mid-February, hopefully. I tend to be the optimist though, so we'll see. That we'll have someone to fill Rick Huggard's very large shoes. He was here with us for 17 years and had amazing expertise. He has agreed to stay on with us part-time. We have a part-time position and kind of mentor and smooth out that transition. But he's also the type that's very open to, new programs coming in, new ideas, new innovations. So I'm excited about where that might go. We offer through those programs, after school programs for 5th through 8th grade. We offer summer adventure for 5th through 9th grade entering. We offer a program in collaboration with the health and PE curriculum for all 5th graders that kind of explores, it's originally a rite of passage program, but it explores decision-making, positive choices, substance use awareness, in a fun, experiential, working together to solve some kind of challenge way. All of those programs explore positive, healthy choices, decision-making. We insert vaping, substance use specifically into the programs, so that kids are getting that information, problem solving, skill building, communication, leadership, targeting the risk and protective factors. So hopefully giving the youth the resiliency that they need to maneuver the difficult times that we are traveling in. Additionally, we have financial casework services, and that I have 2 amazing caseworkers who work with people, and I take some of those cases as well. Work with people from anything from basic emergent needs, food, housing, medical coverage, to we're seeing a lot more complex cases that we're getting referred from the police department, home health situations, people living in the community without sufficient supports to keep them safe and happy in the community. We will walk people through the bureaucratic system of all of the entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, supplements and advantage plans. So those services are helpful to, I think people typically think that we're offering services to people with financial limitations, but those services are helpful to anybody that's of the age where they're making Medicare choices and so forth. We kind of look at an overall assessment on, is this person, what's a plan for self-sufficiency going forward? Is this person employable? Is there some underlying disabilities that haven't been identified? And what's the path that we will work with this person on towards, again, self-sufficiency? Housing, least solvable issue. We just don't have affordable housing in Newington or in surrounding towns. And the folks that do fall into becoming homeless, so they've lost all supports, there is not easy access to even getting into a shelter. I'm preaching to the choir here, Kim. So again, that's just, we try to be creative, but there's just not a lot of good solutions out there for housing for folks. We have the food bank, as all of you know. We're doing about 150 households each month. That's up a little bit from last year, maybe up 5 or 6 households a month. We have an amazing crew of volunteers that allow us to do that. So we have volunteers that receive food, sort food, stock the shelves, pack bags, deliver food to folks that are homebound. So amazing, 200 plus hours of volunteer services monthly. And again, to the choir here, because some of our members are getting put to work this week. We just had a fabulous holiday basket program. we served 375 households last year, and that number rose to 416 households this year, so a significant increase. Every component of the community collaborates with us on this program. Schools, houses of worship, businesses, civic organizations, town council, town staff. Everybody gets involved, private individual residents, and contributes in a number of ways. Some of that's volunteer hours, numerous volunteer hours, probably closer to 500 hours during November and December. And then donations of specific gifts that people have requested, generic gifts that we supplement their gifts with, and cash donations so that we can purchase gift cards and so forth for the holiday meal in November and gifts in December. Again, I have to speak to our volunteers. They are truly an amazing bunch of people, and fill in the gaps that allow us to do as much as we are doing, because we couldn't do probably half of what we're doing without them. We work in conjunction with the Safe Homes Task Force. So we work with the code officials who might identify an issue, building, fire, blight, health. And then our role would be trying to be a support in that, trying to explore resources to remediate. We are hopeful. We're working with CERT to develop a group of volunteers that are trained in hoarding as a mental health diagnosis, and then kind of coaching techniques on how to address that. You can't just go in and throw everything out and make it house beautiful. And then from the health department, the safety of the volunteers, wearing masks, not sweeping up and putting everything into the air, and just those kind of techniques. So we're developing a training that hopefully will help address some of those issues. Additionally, we have the commission's Youth Adult Council, which has members from 12 different components of the sectors of the community. So school, business, civic organizations, youth, publicity, and I'm forgetting people, but we try to have an overall representation across the community so that we can identify what are the trends that youth are facing, what can we as a action council do to either provide awareness to the community at large or fill in gaps for youth programming. We have the Human Rights Commission that meets as well, and we've got active leadership in that, and explore inclusivity and, making everybody feel welcome and accepted in our community of Newington. And then we have the Fair Rent Commission, which is required by legislature as of last year. And I got a call on that just today. We'll be meeting with someone tomorrow. So there's a process where someone can request or file a complaint, basically, that they feel their rent amount has been unduly raised, is not comparable to area housing, and there's 5 or 6 pages of information that they have to provide, and then the landlord has a response as well, and then the Human Rights Commission, in cooperation historically with town council, town attorney, would meet and have a hearing and make a decision on whether that's appropriate or not. I think that's everything.
Councilors. Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Carol, for being here and all the work you and your staff and all the volunteers in town do. We appreciate it
Thank you.
very much. I just had a couple quick questions. There's so much we could talk about, but you emphasized the homelessness issue and affordable housing, which I think everybody here is aware is critical at this point and seems to only be getting worse. Do you have any, even anecdotally, numbers on how we define that? I know there's the McKinney-Vento Act within the schools, I believe, primarily, that when we talk about students who may be not in a stable living situation, there are varying levels of couch surfing, and I don't mean that in a
Negative way,
disrespectful
but
way.
yeah.
It's literally they're just finding a living room they can crash in. There's folks who are literally living in their cars. There are people who are on the streets. There are people who are temporarily in a motel here or there. Do you have any sense of how that breaks out by category in Newington and of real people in real situations, or do we not collect that data really?
We don't collect that data, but historically, I would say the numbers are highest of, folks that are couch surfing, living with family, living with friends, kind of, a couple of months at a time here and there. I think that becomes the primary, but we are seeing more and more people that are just flat out homeless, no support such as friends or family to stay with temporarily. And, living outside.
Yeah.
And the access into the shelters is difficult. So there's, you would call in through 211. That process can take a couple of hours in an ideal world. And, many of the folks that are faced with this are using phones that don't have lots of minutes and can't wait those extended time periods. And they get an intake at that point and then get referred into a housing specialist. And that can take another couple of weeks. So it used to be that we certainly saw less numbers, but the folks that we saw, it might take us 4 or 5 hours in a day, but we could call, statewide and find a shelter and get someone placed. And unfortunately, Connecticut doesn't require that someone be sheltered, and there just aren't always solutions. And a lot of that falls on the local level. So we've had to make difficult choices in who we can help. And the guidelines kind of become, is this a bridge to a change? Is this a bridge to a solution? And if so, we're all about that. But if there's no change in sight, no solution in sight, and our paying a week or two at a motel is only going to delay the inevitable, then that's just not capacity that we have.
Gotcha. That's all I have. Thank you. And thank you.
Counselor Siniakos?
Hey there. No question. I just wanted to thank you for what you do for everyone in the area. I know it's not easy work, and I'm sure that you wish you could do a lot more. But operating with what you have, I think you're doing great, and I think you should take pride in what you do every day. So I just want to say thank you for helping
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Floyd?
I have the same question as Counselor Page, so I'll just leave it as well to a sincere thank you. Just writing things down here, some 15 programs, and imagine with dozens of parts within them and 200+ hours of volunteer work. I mean, the scale of the work that you all do in human services.
6 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff. They're miracle workers. They truly are.
And you are. So sincerely, thank you. I also shudder at the thought that you have to make very painful decisions, I'm sure, between, as you said, those various cases, just based on resources and on capacity. It breaks my heart. I'm sure it breaks yours and every single one of your staff members when they have to make those decisions. So, I mean, I think we really need to think about how we can step up to the plate as a community, especially when it comes to housing. You have said tonight, and you've said in other, meetings as well, that it is the most difficult issue to solve. And, as you know, I sent, a homeowner, or excuse me, a resident your way this past week who was struggling with housing. And I hope they were connected with some resources, but perhaps they weren't. And that wouldn't be because of your staff. It would just be because of a reality of a housing crisis in our community. So I think we really need to get creative about some long-term solutions to that crisis, because it's not just impacting folks on the periphery, it's impacting every single resident in our community, because we have a moral responsibility to care for each other. So thank you so much for taking on that moral responsibility every day, even when others don't. Thank you.
Counselor Nagel.
Thank you for being here. We've talked over many different times in terms of what your department has to do, and it's really beyond comprehension as to the intricacies, the different things that you have to do. Once again, we thought the blight was just a black and white decision-making thing. Human services is really very, very complicated in terms of what's best for the individual. I do have some questions. One not related to programs, whatever. I'll start with that. How are your present facilities working out for you here in the town hall complex?
So again, eternal optimist, you'll hear me say that about myself. It's new, it's clean, it's efficient. It's lacking space, right? It's lacking storage. We've got what was originally our file storage, which there are rules around how you have to store and keep files locked up, with a desk in it for our student intern. So we get creative. Certain times of the year, the food storage is sufficient, and unfortunately, the sad story of that is because that's when we don't have enough food to feed the 150 households that are coming in. And then, the nature of the beast is that people all think about helping, right? This is something concrete that they can do, and that starts like September through January. And we've got food everywhere. We've got food under my desk, we've got food everywhere. It's a challenge.
I take it there is, from what you've been saying just about that, there is an ebb and flow in terms of need of people needing to go to your department. The youth programs you mentioned at the very beginning, or individual youths who are given a time to change from whatever infraction they may have prevented. Do those, do you write out a contract? Is there a special agreement, or is it all verbal?
There's a written agreement. We meet with the youth and the family. We have a form that's kind of an assessment form that both family, youth, parents, or guardians, and whoever is going to be working with the youth. So again, we maintain contact with them for 6 months, complete, regarding the youth and how they see, what were the contributing factors that got them to where they were, what would be helpful situations that they can identify to keep them out of those negative choices and onto a positive path. That happens ahead of time, and then that's shared with the board. Again, that's made up of components of all the different factors, and while the youth is there and the family member is there, it's discussed, and what might, what was the impact that this act had, and how might we rectify that? How might we give justice to this?
I assume records are kept of that, or what you have done along the line, just in case they come back to you or something goes astray and you can adapt.
Yeah, and there's we get some monies from DCF. So there's reporting to DCF, and there's a small grant, $5,000, that we can use towards our case worker that kind of connects with the youth for the 6-month period.
Are the youth programs that you have, are they volunteer? Do they have to attend a certain number? It's the challenge programs you were mentioning.
Those programs are strictly volunteer. What sometimes happens is a youth who may have gone through the juvenile review board. His way or her way of giving back may be to participate in those programs and act as a mentor. So, flipping the role for them and hopefully getting folks to recognize the benefit of acting as a positive choice example to younger youth.
I know you also mentioned, and we all realize that the lack of affordable housing, which has a different meaning depending upon who you talk to. It's not met in this city, this town, and I know you said in surrounding towns. Does the large Cedar Street development, when that is completed, is that at all going to make any, if at all, a dent in terms of residences that are what you may call affordable?
I'm
not?
hoping. I have yet to see the actual formula for what they're considering affordable. We have a lot of folks on the waiting list and who have been contacted that the opening of that will be delayed a bit. So we're hoping it's going to meet the need for some people, but again, I don't have the specific formula on how they're going to count.
Curious,
how they're going to calculate.
that
Right.
appeared to be something that might, but I realize it might not, even though the prices may be substantially lower than what people are paying regularly. Still, if something costs a nickel and you only have a penny, it's a lot. In terms of I'm hitting here and there things that seem
That's
to be in terms of hoarding.
Mhm.
How much is that related, or your awareness of it, to the blight programs and connecting them to now?
What was the question
In other
again?
words, how do you at all learn through the blight program about hoarding? Is there a relationship there between the two? Is there a way in which you become aware of it?
Yeah.
Because
Cases that are hoarding that aren't blight, and there's cases that are blight that aren't hoarding, but there's certainly some similarities in how you would want to remediate. Newington took the lead in statewide in addressing hoarding back when Karen Pachoma was the director, and she and I kind of initiated a statewide task force, and so really, made strides in identifying treatment providers, trying to come up with best practices for how to deal with it, how to communicate. So we communicate differently, human services folks and code officials. So you go to a meeting about a situation and a code official is going to say, 25 Reindeer Lane. And I'm going to say, well, what was the name of the person? So it's just, meshing those differences. But I think Newington does an amazing job on all fronts, code officials working together to really, it doesn't seem like the mission is to be punitive. The mission is to remedy and give this person a peaceful, healthy, safe environment.
And last but not least, and I know I'm asking lots of questions, but as I said, there are needs, and it's a viable service that you provide. You talked about the Fair Rent Commission and how you go about what you do within it. What is the frequency in town for applicants coming to that commission for that reason?
Very, very, very seldom. And I'm not sure if that's an issue of awareness of the service, or yeah, I'm not sure why, but we had two situations that we reviewed last year. This situation that I'm going to talk to tomorrow is the first this year, but the year is young. And then prior to that, we probably didn't have anybody for 8 or 9 years.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll let someone else have an opportunity.
Counselor Rodrigo.
Yeah. Carol, I think, many of the town residents, just think in terms of human services, in terms of food bank and then your holiday programs. So tonight was just such a good refresher of all the programs that you do. And certainly reinforces the fact that you've got a great staff, but the cadre of volunteers that, the community does come together, not just at, Thanksgiving and Christmas, but all year round. I know that you've got people supporting you, and I think it's great. But in terms of your programs, I guess I didn't realize how closely you must be working. You're like the center of concentric circles with other departments. I mean, you're working with the police department, you're working with senior, you're working with Parks and Rec, you're working with the Board of Ed, and you're almost like at the center of all these different needs, and you kind of, I guess, keep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I want to claim the center, but but yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how interactive your department was with all the other essential departments in our town. I just have a general question. Within the next, because of all the new development that's going to be happening within the next, let's say 5 years or whatever, possibility of up to 3,000, let's say, new residents. First of all, are you keeping an eye on it? Are you being informed? Because it seems that no matter really what the income level of these people are, there's certainly going to be some impact to your department. Are you at all, not concerned, but are you keeping an eye on what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's kind of probably a double-edged sword. So, part of me is like, yay, we have some housing for folks. And then part of me recognizes that not all of that necessarily goes smoothly, and that may mean that more folks have more needs. So we're gonna have to, play that one and see how it plays out and what our capacity is, and what you all can do to support us keep meeting that capacity.
Well, I'm sure, we'll do what we can, and again, the volunteers that you have, but it just does kind of concern me a little bit that you might be, you're already probably under-resourced, but you might in the next couple of years, but we'll see what we can do about it. So thank you, Carol.
Counselor Maggie.
I just want to thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate your efforts to that you do on behalf of our community. I'm lucky enough to volunteer for the holiday baskets, and it's sort of the highlight of our season. And I just want to speak out and thank those volunteers, because you have 6 people and 2 part-timers. So there's no way with that many people you could do all you can do without the volunteers. And even volunteers are good, but someone's got to organize the volunteers. Someone's got to get them where they're supposed to be on time, and get the routes to the baskets to. And so I know that takes a lot of work, and I suspect you guys work overtime to get all this done. And the fact that all the staff do it with such smiles on their faces,
We love it.
is amazing. It's uplifting just to go there and watch, the smooth work. It looks like chaos to me, but it under it all, it has some smooth and a process to it. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the town for all that to do. And also the people who donate stuff, not just, they may not volunteer to help out, but they put toys in the cruiser, or they drop off food, or they, whatever needs you have, they seem to rise up and help. And I think that's important. So thank you for your efforts.
Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yes, I'll echo everyone else's thank you for coming and sharing all that information with us. I have worked with you and also with Jamie and other folks at Senior and Disabled Center on a specific case. And just from personal experience, the time and the effort that you took, and I know, excuse me, collaborating, not only here in the community, but also I'm sure outside of, you would have had to, outside of Newington as well, making those connections and keeping us informed, those of us that were working with this individual, who happened to be a senior, an older adult. You know, I really was able to see firsthand how that shakes out. It's not always that positive an outcome. This one turned out, you know, to work out relatively well. So thank you very much for that. Maybe at some point, Connecticut will be a right to shelter state. It's yeah, you're not the only one that wants to work towards that. Question, just one quick question that I have. You work with everybody in, I mean, we're a town where we all work together and we all network. In terms of veterans and veterans needs, do you connect with Chris at
Yeah.
American Legion,
Yeah.
and what are the connections that you have with the VA hospital, or how does?
I will say that veterans services and veterans programs are an enigma. They are many layered and very complicated. So we have a few contact people that are the gurus there, and we connect folks there.
Yeah.
Because as fast as I might learn a program, it changes. So they have good services. They're very complicated, and it's just not something that we can take on the detail of getting folks onto that. So it's really just a warm referral.
One last quick question. And again, many thanks for everything that you do, and your staff and all the volunteers that make all this work happen. Point in time count is coming up. Is Newington involved in that? Are you involved? Are you or your staff involved in?
We have
way?
not. No.
Okay, just curious, because I work in Hartford, so I yeah, okay, it's coming up soon. I didn't know if that.
Yeah.
How that connects with Newington, or how that impacts.
There was where they did some surveys,
Yeah.
as opposed to the point in time specific, and we did some of that reporting as far as folks that we knew in the community that were in unstable housing or temporary housing, motels, family, friends. But as far as going out and doing the moment in time, no.
Well, good. I'm not good for the point in time count, but good for all of you, because you have.
Agreed.
You'll get the data. Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight, Carol. This was a great presentation.
I'm gonna be quick, and I don't have questions. I just really have a statement. Thank you for everything you do. It's a huge need in town. And I just hope that the people watching, people here, people listening understand what you're saying. There is a need here in town. People have a problem putting food on their table. Which bill are they gonna pay this month? That's real. That's here in our town, people around us. You said you have to turn people away sometimes. We have a need for housing. We have so many needs. When we talk about affordable housing, people, I think, need to get themselves educated a little bit and understand what affordable housing means. I can't tell you how many times campaigning, I heard people talking about, developments in affordable housing, and those people are gonna come in. Those people could be me. Those people are already here in town. Let's not call them those people. They are real. It happens and it's here. And I just hope that people can try to understand that a little more and find some compassion. And if you don't understand it, know that you're lucky. You're one of the lucky ones because many, many, many people struggle for many different reasons. So I just want people to really understand that. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Thank you so much for being here, Carol. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Moving on to the agenda. Next is public participation. If you'd like to speak in public participation in the room, feel free to come up, or if you're over Zoom, you can use the raise hand function.
Switch gears from what I thought I was going to talk about tonight, after following Carol. Councilor Nagel made some great questions, asking about the facility. You may or may not know that their space actually shrunk in the new town hall. And she may have food under her desk and you can put things wherever, but there's a lack of freezer space. There's a lack of refrigeration. Things are actually getting spoiled because of the lack of resources. Carol and her staff do an amazing job. As far as affordable housing, I think the barn door is closed, unfortunately. We really missed the boat in this town. We have 1,003 new units coming in. And yes, the Dakota project has a substantial amount, but we went, the last I saw from Paul Dixon's numbers, 8.49, 8.51% affordable housing. How did we do that? How did we only go up two ticks of one and allow these luxury apartments being built? So that was what I can speak about, but I got a minute and a half left, I guess. You all received, and thank you for distributing it, a long spreadsheet that I put together. I'd like to discuss the item 11C on tonight's agenda, the proposed amendment to the 333 tax filing agreement. Let me first say that since the town did not in any way cause the hardships that are presented in their narrative, I don't see any compelling reason why we should comply with any of the agreements. More importantly, the spreadsheet that you were given in their package, when you first look at it, you may simply say that, well, they're paying the same amount of taxes. That's how it looks if you look at the bottom line. And the only deficit might be you're getting less upfront, but more at the end. That's not entirely true. The sheet I gave you has a lot of assumptions. And I also need to make a really big caveat that I don't have the whole agreement. So I don't pretend to know the whole story. I don't have the developer's construction schedule. So these are all hypothetical numbers of what could happen. The key to the whole thing is the property is taxed at the full 70% of the grand list until the certificate of occupancy is given. That's the key factor. What the developer is proposing is to start the agreement now before the CO. So what you're going to miss out on is the taxes during the construction period. And my sheet is trying to show the 2023 numbers. Those are right from the town assessor's office. And what they're proposing is to pay zero taxes this year. What they're really going to owe, since there's no CO yet, is $277,000. They are at 38% complete right now. I took a wild stab driving by the project that maybe by the end of this year, they could be 75% complete. That's just my own guess. There's no facts behind that. But if that was the case, then we would be getting $468,223 in tax. Their proposal is for $239,000. Assuming that in 2025, they get their CO. And that, I guess, is still in question because it sounds like there's still a long ways to go getting design for the anchor tenant. And their narrative says without the anchor tenant, the other people pay less rent. Well, that's not our issue. I mean, they have a $22 million development
A
here.
minute over.
So I'll quickly close with, I'm assuming that 2025 will be 100%. And that would give us the 298.37. So it could be as bad as giving up $1 million for $508,000 in the first 3 years, depending how quickly they get their CO. That's a lot of police officers, that's a lot of school teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Ronnie.
Thank you.
In the room, we do have one on Zoom who would like to speak. You may go ahead, Rose.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. First of all, I'd like to say I'm very happy to see Jamie, our acting town manager, back at the table. It's been a long time since I've seen you there, Jamie. I hope everything goes well for you for the next 90 days or whatever it ends up being. Maybe at the point in time where there may be a consideration of waiving the rules, you might want to explain to the town council how that goes. It's a pet peeve of mine that when the rules are waived, that there is public participation. Of course, I always get confused whether it's before the discussion or before the vote, so maybe you can help me out with that one. I'd also like to hear something when you're going over the ARPA funds as to what the $29,000 is being allocated for at Clem Lemire for the scoreboard, because the last meeting or so ago, I thought that there was some talk of Saputo donating $50,000 for that scoreboard. If it's for something outside of that, what they paid for, I think it should have been mentioned when the donation was brought up to the town council. Last night, I asked the mayor about the status of 690 Cedar Street, Anthony Properties. I wasn't quite clear, I guess, in my question, because what I was looking to hear was, is there a closing date? I have been following this since 2008 when the town took over the property. I think we've gone through 5 or 6 town managers who have been given the authority to sign the sale agreement, and yet I see nothing other than 1 or 2 executive sessions that were held previously, and kind of made me wonder what was going on. Carol LeBrecq and her staff are just wonderful. They've been very good to me, and I'm sure many other people in this town, as have all the other departments. We have a great group of people working here. I'm just wondering if there's any way that any ARPA funds can be used for food or even energy assistance to people, or people that are having trouble financially. And I know COVID's over, but it's not over. People are still suffering from it and trying to catch up. Bulk waste and the blight issue. Eric does a wonderful job. You're coming up to the budget season now. I don't know what the cost is for bulk waste. I know we did away with it, and I understand it was a savings to the town, but how much of a savings is it if we're out there trying to take care of what people are putting to the curb? That might be something you could look into. Affordable housing, I agree with Councilor Gonzalez that it's something that's here. I think a lot of people say those people because they don't know what affordable housing is. I got an education when Dakota came in. I wrote to the Department of Housing and got a breakdown of what is considered to be affordable housing. And Hopkins Village is affordable housing. Some of our group homes are affordable housing. It all depends on how the financing was obtained for the units. So maybe that's a subject that our town planner or even someone else, maybe Carol, can explain too. All right, I think my time is probably up, even though I don't see a bar across the screen, but I thank you very much for everything that you do. And if you can answer any of those questions, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Anybody else in the room or over Zoom that would like to speak in public participation? Seeing anyone, then we will move on in the agenda. Next is remarks by counselors on public participation. Counselors, I believe you say Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yeah, just two issues. Thank you, Rose, for your comments. Just went back and I was looking over the sheet of the ARPA requests, and it's the $29,000 is for a scoreboard at Churchill Park, not Clem Lemaire. And it's interesting because when I was going through these, that was the first thing that came to my mind. And then I went back and checked, and it's the Churchill Park scoreboard. Bulky waste pickup. Thank you for raising that issue. That's been something that I'm very concerned about. And several of us have discussed this, and we'll see how that goes with the next budget session. And again, I want to thank you for your comments regarding affordable housing. I think a lot of folks, and thank you, Kathy, Councilor Gonzalez. There are a lot. It's a difficult and it's a fuzzy subject for a lot of folks. And I think the more information that we provide and the more education people have, the more understanding they will be of what that actually means and why there is such a need and why we keep raising this as an issue here in Newington. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Page.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Mr. Horgan for your crunching of numbers. You're right on the face of the proposed tax fixing agreement. It looks like it's a net neutral for the town. I don't claim to know enough about accounting or this type of thing, so I'm going to rely on data that we get from leadership within town and our financial folks. And I think we're going to be hearing a little more about that later tonight. But thanks for your take on this. And, I'll look over those numbers and then juxtapose them with our CFO and other people's numbers here. Thank you. And also just wanted to comment that I know from the first term that I served, I've raised questions about 690 to Rose Lyons' comments. Cedar Street, about from the appraisal to why we've continued to have delays in that. And I know there have been obvious economic circumstances on a macro level with the impact of COVID and the cost of everything, lumber and all that. It's crazy. So there are real issues, but at the same time, we'd like to see something happen there, especially given its place next to the busway and opportunities for possibly even more affordable housing as well as market rate. And so we'll be revisiting that and hearing more from our leadership on that. And the ARPA monies, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later tonight. I think we need to look at ways that we can creatively and appropriately apply those to offset some needs in town. I would agree with Councilor Rada that as far as bulky waste goes, I know we had proposed at the last budget cycle, maybe like a fall and a spring pickup. I think we will revisit that and talk as a council about how we can find some compromise to maybe not go back to a weekly just call and pick up, but something that's responsible fiscally, but also responds to some of the needs articulated tonight. That's all I got. Thanks.
Councilor Mackey.
Again, thank you, Mr. Horgan, for the numbers. I'll look them over. I think it's good to get a perspective, and I think the way you spread it out on the spreadsheet makes sense. Just comment to Rose Lyons' comments. There are 3 items in ARPA money for human services: a freezer, a client shopping freezer, a freezer replacement, a freezer, and then an upgrade to the challenge course. And we'll talk about those, I'm sure, later.
Yeah, Mr. Horgan, thank you for the spreadsheet, and as much as you come forward to us, I hope you don't mind if I might you at some point.
For a consult.
Yeah, to just get a better explanation after the discussion tonight.
Do your taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving along. Coming now to old business. Oh, is there any email correspondence?
Oh, I know, and we were discussing amongst ourselves, clarity on the policy for email correspondence. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicholas DiFrancesco, who had corresponded with some of us, I think everyone, about economic development and how we incentivize that in the process we engage in. And I think I may have forwarded those on to our acting town manager, and just wanted to mention Mr. DiFrancesco's letter, and if it's appropriate, according to rules, have that correspondence attached to the minutes. I don't think we read letters into the
We don't read them into the minutes, but everyone who should get a copy of it, obviously, we all read it.
Right.
I'm not saying we don't read them, we just read them into the minutes.
Right.
And I think we all got a copy of it. I know I read it this afternoon, so I got my copy. So, it's all automatically attached to the record.
Okay, great.
Yeah, as long, yeah.
It's sent to me and I do attach it to the.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware of any other correspondence of that level requesting.
I mean, it has to be, I think it has to be received by a certain.
There is a time limit. So if you send something in, 3 minutes ago, we can't read it.
24 hours.
I believe it's 5 o'clock the day before, so it would have to be Monday by 5 o'clock. I believe that's the rule. I'm not positive, but it is the rule.
Thank you.
All right. Now we move on to old business. Item 7A, disband an active committee, school code compliance committee. Where are we at with that?
Interesting bit that we need to work through. The school code compliance committee has, it had been active for a number of years. I think it goes back to 2010, but it last met about 3 years ago in 2021. Typically to disband a committee, we would want to see the final report from that committee. So this, I guess, went back to the last town council meeting prior to me being in the seat, and went to the school business office and asked if they had a report to close out the committee. They recently came back to us and said, no, we believe it was done by a former town employee who is retired. Pretty much everybody involved with this on the staff side are now, retired. So we looked through our files and there's no report either. So the last activity was a phase 3 activity that went on in 2021. So if you respectfully ask that you can please let us to continue researching this. If we determine that a final report was never completed by the committee a couple of years back, then we'll go back to the committee, committee folks that we can reach and perhaps ask them to reconvene to do so that you can close this out and move on.
Thank you for that information. That's more than we've had for a while.
Yeah, just I would just point out is I'm sorry, I raised my hand. Let me raise my hand. And
Go ahead.
I got
Councilman.
yelled at once for raising my hand. Just raise me.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. I would just point out that is one that served on that committee for many, many years now. We never did get a final report as far as I know. It was never came to the committee. The last action we took was to do some minor adjustments to some of the work. So I think it still needs the final report. Whatever that report is, we need to close this out, because I also believe there's like $200,000 attached to this committee that's just sitting there that nobody can use because it's tied up in bureaucracy.
Correct. So yes, let's work on getting this closed out, work with the current administrative, Director of Administrative Services to reconvene what we need to so we could close it out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Tiniakos?
Just now, you said that typically we need a final report to dissolve it. Like, so do we actually need it, or is it what we typically get?
I would say yes, the proper thing would be to have the final report to close it out.
Okay.
I believe because this was, again, I'll raise my hand. I believe because this was a building committee, you have to have the final report too. If it was a regular committee, you could just, if it was a committee on planting
Whatever,
shrubs in
yeah.
front of the yard,
Yeah.
that'd be different, but this is a building committee. I think you have to have a final report. You can probably say you don't need one, but, and it doesn't have to be really exhaustive final report. It just says we did all the work, we spent all the money, here's what's left, and we're done with the committee.
You should,
The
for the
project's done.
record. Mhm.
I just want to thank Councilman Mankey for being a dog on the bone on this note, because $200,000.
$200,000 is $200,000.
It could pay for a lot of things, and we appreciate this. And we've talked and would just say that we hope we can resolve this as we approach our budget session, because $200,000 is $200,000. So we look forward to resolving it and moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Nagel?
Just to add on to what's been said, it isn't just that committee, which I've served on too several times, has taken on several different building projects, from a tennis court to the roof of the high school to renovations within the music department in the high school to other things. So it's not just this one building has been fixed or this roof has been fixed. We can do away with it. So I guess the question is either we just close it out, or do we have to go back and investigate all the buildings that are done, or just the last one, which I wasn't on that particular board at that time, so I don't remember what it was.
Very interesting and good question, which we will research and follow up on. I know it was a phased project, so we'll see what we may already have in terms of that information and see what we still need to do to finalize that report to close it out.
Okay, it was a rhetorical question.
It doesn't have to be rhetorical. We can look at it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So I guess we'll hold off on this for now, and we'll reassess at the next meeting.
We'll keep it on the agenda.
We'll keep it on the agenda. Exactly.
Do we need to move to table it, or, oh, I'm assuming
No.
action may be taken?
Yeah, I don't think we have to.
Still moving.
No, we're just leaving it. Moving on to item B, job description, which is for the eligibility program coordinator, elderly worker. We were presented this last week. Counselor Kiniakos, would you mind reading a resolution?
Newington Town Council hereby approves the amendment to the classification and pay plan by approving a job description for the eligibility program coordinator, A-1 position, as recommended by Jamie Trevathan, acting town manager, in her capacity as personnel director.
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. Any discussion? Counselor Floyd.
I just had a couple of things briefly. I know it's pretty routine, but first, it's been said in this chamber before, but just thank you again to Karen Halpert for all the work that she did, in her role. And, those will be very big shoes to fill. But just reading here, just for the record, I think it's maybe helpful for us to consider, given the number of programs that this eligibility coordinator is responsible for connecting residents with, perhaps it is a role that should be filled by more than one person, and perhaps we need additional eligibility coordinators to take a look at those kinds of programs and connect people to resources. And then I just also had a question. I don't see any information in the job description about language proficiency in languages other than English. Just as a point of order, a question that I'll ask, at another point, but just curious as to what the protocol is for those who are perhaps interested in those programs, but who do not speak English as a first language. Do they contact the language line, et cetera? Jamie, you may have, things to speak to that, but those were just questions. So.
I may. Great questions. To answer your first concern about whether or not we need more than one eligibility program coordinator, we are, I'm speaking as the senior disabled director right now, to be clear for the record.
That's how you change
Yes, you
hats
changed
there.
hats, okay.
Once around in the chair.
We continually and constantly evaluate our needs for the older adults in the community, including, many things, including this and needs for these eligibility programs. At this time, I am comfortable in stating that we have the correct person in place. The hiring process is going to be very important. Then it can be handled by one person. We are lucky enough to have the support of not only our social worker, Terry Snyder, but also our wonderful human services department that does step in to help us when we need, and for emergency situations that might be outside the scope of this position. Your second question was, about the language. There is no requirement to be bilingual or trilingual, no multiple languages for this position, but we do have a list of folks who can help us translate. Some are other staff members, some are volunteers that can help us, that can maintain confidentiality and help us translate when needed.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Any other questions, Council? We have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. On now to the annual item C, annual regular meeting calendar. I believe we had some question on that. Do you have some questions? Yeah, the council board, you have a question?
Yes, so I was just looking at the April meeting dates. I know April 23rd, falls within Passover. That note is here. I heard from a few residents, I wasn't aware, I'm glad they brought it up, but that April 9th is the first night of Eid as well. So I think we just may need to revisit those two dates at some point to just see perhaps maybe there's another day that we could do instead. I know those off weeks in that month because it's very, very busy. We're, in budget extravaganza. And so we're going to be, occupied with other meetings, but perhaps that's something that we can look at.
This has come up in the past in terms of the Passover holiday falling within a council meeting falling within the Passover holiday. What past town councils have opted to do is they will cancel that meeting. And then as the time approaches, look at your schedules and determine what works for a special meeting in its place. So that's on there because the town offices are open that day, but certainly obviously appropriate thing to do would be to consider that. And then again, for the April 9th, of course, we, do the same thing. I do just want to mention the reason why the December 24th meeting was removed from the proposal rather than just listed with an asterisk is that town offices are closed that day. So again, the council may wish to have a special meeting, in its place.
Just a quick question. I see where on the bottom it says the Passover is 4/22/24 and continues to the beginning of 4/30. It should be 4/23, right?
No, it begins on 4/22, but it goes through.
Maybe it's only one day.
No, it's a full week.
It's a full week.
Yeah. The first day of Passover is the 22nd. So the 23rd meeting will fall within Passover. Counselor Page?
So you're done? So
Yeah.
So then is the proper thing for your recommendation, town manager, to just move forward with this, and then as we approach, we can figure this out. We can just cancel or move a meeting.
Your decision, you may wish to remove the conflict meetings now and reschedule them, or you can just pass this and cancel. You can cancel anytime you'd like and create special meetings anytime you'd like. Either way.
It just might be more, we want to respect these holidays and I anticipate we will. It might be more efficient rather than get into the weeds on this tonight, is just to go ahead and pass it and then we can convene and figure this out.
I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Anybody else have any thoughts?
No, I couldn't find my hand. But, yeah, because it does seem, because the two other free weeks in April is the budget. So I think we're gonna have a lot of special meetings and cancellations and reschedules, so maybe, like I said, just keep it as it is, and then as we get closer, but be cognizant of those holidays.
Absolutely.
That sounds good for me. Okay. Counselor Gonzalez, would you read the resolution? Oh, no, Tim, do you have another question?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll take my hand now.
Counselor Gonzalez, would you like to read the resolution, please?
Sure. The Newington Town Council, in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, hereby approves the 2024 Town Council regular meeting schedule as attached to this resolution.
We have a motion, we have a second? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. Oh, sorry.
Our voices, that's the right.
No, I just came from the same area.
Either one.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Again, back to ARPA funds. Now, I know there's some different things in this packet this time, from what I understand. What we were presented with the last time was simply the town manager's recommendations, and this list also includes every ask, basically. Is that correct?
Almost every ask. As stated in your memo, it was presented as of course, you are welcome to take action on any or all, or as you desire, of what was previously presented. To give a little bit more information, this was initially presented or handled as a budget, somewhat of a budget process. So town departments were asked to make CIP requests that would be related to ARPA funding. And Mr. Hutka reviewed them and, sent his recommendations to you, which would be appropriate. Typically in a budget request, when you receive the town manager's recommended budget, it would also have a line that includes departmental requests that were not included in the town manager's recommendations. So if we're going to do this somewhat as a budget process, I thought it might be helpful for the council to see the items that were not included in the initial request from the town manager. I'm sorry, the initial recommendation from the town manager, but were requested by departments. This is very new information to me. So again, the council may take action on whatever you want, whatever you'd like, but if you would like a little bit more information about these other requests, or you wish to have any of my recommendations, I would just respectfully ask for a little bit of time to review them. In addition, there was I believe the fire department appeared before you last week to talk about the camera, the equipment that they had requested. Certainly it's something you may take action on if you wish, but it is not included in this request that was submitted last week. And I can get the information on that and give it to you as well. Final bit of information is that there was one town department that hadn't been requested to submit an ARPA request if they wish to do so, and they did wish to do so. So I asked them to please go ahead and do that. I just received it today. So again, please, take action if you wish, but I am also willing to provide additional information if you wish.
Councilor Menke?
I think I would prefer personally to do it all at once and rather do a piece here, piece there, and a piece here. So I would recommend we just let this stay on the agenda for next week, next meeting, and then we take it all as one body rather than piecemeal it. I think that piecemeal it's just I agree. Yeah, I agree to do.
Agreed.
Councilor Siniakos?
I agree with Councilor Menke there. Just for my own knowledge, what department wasn't included initially?
It was the registrars of voters.
Thank you.
Councilor Madrigal?
Yes, can you give us the figure and just verbally what the register of voters is requesting as well as the amount?
They're looking for a request of approximately $8,379 for a storage system and related equipment.
So that's still.
This was still below the limit, right?
Below the limit, so it fit in. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Deal breaker.
And I will get this information to you as well.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I think that I definitely have some more questions on certain things. I'm not going to go through them all right now. I don't think it's appropriate, but I don't think that I would be able to make a educated decision on what to vote for and what not to. So I agree. I think this should be tabled for another time.
Yeah, I agree with what's been stated. I think we should leave it on the agenda for another time and give you some time to review it and make your own recommendations.
And if I may, I did ask the finance director if there's anything on here that's time sensitive, and there is not currently anything on here that would require your action this evening.
Thank
you. So I'm comfortable with leaving it and moving on.
So
Great.
no.
We don't have to take any action.
Leave it on the agenda.
Just leave it on the agenda, yeah. All right, so we're moving right along now.
Was there one other
Oh,
thing?
so sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Greg. Sorry.
So if some of these, let's say that are not going to be approved with ARPA, that's not going to preclude the departments from coming back for the budget and
Right.
making the request. Okay, so it's not all, or, I mean, if we don't approve it this, for the ARPA, they can still request it through the budget process. Okay, thank you.
Questions or comments or concerns? Councilor Nagel?
And there are available monies aside from the 1,648 or 43 that were under the request from the previous town manager that are still available. So it goes beyond the amount that's there that we could assess to something that is on that list or something else, or towards the registrar of voters amount, which may be too much, but at any rate, we aren't wedded to limit things.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? Moving along now to resignations and appointments. For item 8A, Board of Education Liaison Appointments, Councilor Page, would you mind reading the resolution?
Certainly, Mayor. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments. Anna Reynolds, Permanent Building Committee, Amy Parati, Board of Ed, number 175 Hillcrest Avenue, Party D, term, BOE term. Brittany Carr, BOE member, 81 Vernon Drive, Party R, BOE term. Employee Insurance and Pension Benefits Committee, Sam Sharma, BOE member, 268 Hillcrest Avenue, Party D, BOE term. Tony Mealy, BOE member, 124 Apple Hill, Party R, BOE term. Joint Shared Services Subcommittee, Amy Parati, BOE member, same address. Party D, BOE term, and Brittany Carr, BOE member, same address.
I would just point out that the address is 81 Mountain View Drive.
Oh, thank you. Let me correct those. Brittany Carr, 81 Mountain View Drive, under the Anna Reynolds Permanent Building Committee. And
Sorry, I didn't.
no, thank you.
Correction.
And Joint Services, Shared Services Subcommittee, also 81 Mountain View Drive, Party R, BOE term. Standing Insurance Committee, Sam Sharma, same address, 268 Hillcrest Avenue, Party D, BOE term. Tony Mealy, 1248 Apple Hill, Party R, BOE term. Town Council, Timothy Newton, BOE member, 75 Barnard Drive, Party R, BOE term. And Youth Adult Council, Jessica Weaver, BOE member, 494 Main Street, Party D, BOE term.
All right, motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Tiniakos. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Right, next is appointments for the Capital Region Council of Governments. Councilor Draco, would you mind reading the resolution?
Not at all.
Thank you.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments. Capital Region Council of Governments. Newington Town Council Representative Matt Lord, 258 Audubon Avenue, Party D, NTC term. TPZ Representative Gia Pasquarelli, 52 Wells Drive North, Party D, TPZ term. TPZ Rep Stephen Woods, 94 New Britain Avenue, Party D, term TPZ term.
All right, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mankey. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, next one is resignation for item C. Councilor Nagel, would you mind reading the resolution?
Okay, if I can turn to it here. That the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Michael Karanian as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals in accordance with correspondence received on December 20th, 2023 and effective immediately.
Second.
Deputy Mayor Rada, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? No. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 8D, resignation. Councilor Floyd, would you please read that resolution?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Sharon Dunning as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals in accordance with correspondence received on December the 21st, 2023 and effective January 5th, 2024.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Gonzalez. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving right along in the agenda. Next, we have tax refunds, approval of January 9th tax refunds. Deputy Mayor Rada, would you mind reading that resolution?
Resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $4,659.94 are hereby approved in the individual amounts and for those named on the request for refund of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, moving along. Next we have, minutes for previous meeting. We did have to make an amendment to the December 12th meeting. Counselor Menke, would you mind reading the resolution?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby moves to amend the regular meeting minutes of December 12th, 2023, section 10, page 16, to include the reference to Mr. Hutka and his attorney in minutes and resolution 2023-171 to reflect the following changes listed below. The Newington Town Council, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 1-206A, hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members, the mayor, Attorney Jared Lucan, Attorney William Madison, and Thomas Hutka to discuss a personnel issue, town manager's contract.
Seconded by Counselor Tiniakos. Any discussion on this? Counselor Rodrigo?
Yeah, I'm a little confused, because I don't believe that all the individuals that were mentioned were allowed to stay for the entire executive session. I think one individual was asked to leave, so shouldn't this be?
You have anything for that?
That's a great question. Let me research that a bit. The motion states invited those members. I don't know that it meant they stayed the whole time, but let's get the wording right.
He wanted to stay and he was
Okay.
told to leave, so.
Okay.
I think it just needs to be
Of course,
reworked.
let me get the wording right for you, if you want to table this, and then I'll get it to you and clarify whether it needs to be adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah,
We just leave it as it is?
you can just table the motion and table the approval of the minutes.
So we will.
In this case, I would move tabling then, as opposed to just leaving it on the agenda.
The second to table this for a future meeting.
Second by Kim Rada.
Second by Counselor Floyd. Motion by Counselor Menke, second by Counselor Floyd. All those in favor of tabling this?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Nina. Let's moving on to consideration of new business. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. We have to approve the, can I entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 18th special meeting?
So
Second?
Second.
Motion by Counselor Ford, second by Counselor Page. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. That.
Thank you, sir.
Good catch. It's at the top of the page, I said. All right, moving on to consideration of new business. Item 11A, a budget review schedule for 2024-2025. Do you want to go? So this is pretty standard, it looks like, in terms of the schedule for the budget. Do you want to go through that a little bit?
Correct. This is issued every year. It's put together by the finance department. The council doesn't need to take action on the special meetings, but we'll take your recommendations if you need to make any changes to those. What does need to take action or will request for you to take action on at the next town council meeting would be to set the 2 public hearing dates so that we would be able to notice them out to the public in a proper amount of time. So that will be an item on the second January meeting for your consideration.
Any questions or comments on this? Counselor Page?
Can you just please restate what you just said about those meetings? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure.
There are 2 types of meetings listed on the review schedule. one would be special meetings in which you discuss the budget. Those do not need to be approved by council resolution, but we'll take your suggestions if you want to move them around. There are 2 public hearings in the budget process that you do need to take action, or we'd ask you to take action at the next meeting to set those 2 dates in order to give us time to put out the proper public notice and a notification of the public hearings. So
March 12 and
April 7th.
April
So the resolution next week would be for you to consider setting those 2 public hearing dates.
Okay, and if I may, Mayor, I just wanted to make that as explicit as possible, because I know one of the things that we've talked about and we want to have a discussion with all of the council about this is to, in the spirit of transparency and inviting all residents, regardless of their position on any budget item, so to be enfranchised and part of this discussion, to, please make note of this and join us in conversations about the needs of the town, so that hopefully our intention is, and I know there's, as Councilor Mankey and others have pointed out in previous times we've mentioned this, that on the last minute, on right now, it looks like April 16th, there are sometimes discussions and negotiations and things that have to happen. That's reality. But our intention is to try to publicize our intentions budgetarily well before that, so that when we get to the second public hearing at the very latest on April 2nd, if that's what we decide, that folks can come in and tell us they love it, they hate it, or somewhere in the middle, and then we can take that into consideration for our deliberations and our debate and make those tough decisions between April 2nd and April 16th. So I know I'm going on and on and on about this. I just, I want people to know that we really take to heart previous comments about last second deals that are cut or negotiated, and we tell everybody. And so we just want to try to not have that happen. That's all. So thanks.
Schedule that you have in your packet, once it's finalized, will be published and disseminated to the public too.
And advertised too.
And
Yeah,
advertised, of course, noted, posted, everything.
Do we have Jana Murphy on the line? Is there anything we need to know about this, Jana? Anything special, or everything's pretty?
I just want to kind of tell you, I know the dates are there. There's time limits that we built into the schedule that are based on requirements of the charter. So just so kind of give you an idea, there's a time limit between your first public hearing and your second public hearing. And then there's a time limit of 20 days from your second public hearing from you adopting your budget. So this is kind of based on a lot of the time constraints that are built within the charter. So there is a little wiggle room, but there's not a lot of wiggle room to move the dates around when you're looking at different ideas.
Any other questions or concerns or discussion from councilors? All right. Moving along, next is mid-year transfers. Jana, can you give us some update on this?
Yep, this is something that we do, well, I do, usually with you twice a year. I'll do it in January, and then if we're lucky enough, I won't have to do it before the end of the year, but we're never that lucky. Within my memo and with the reports with it, you can see that I gave you an update regarding the revenue, which I'll kind of start with you first. This year's revenue, we're looking healthy, I'll say that much. I'm keeping an eye out for the, I'm always very conservative, by the way. So if you see these numbers, I'm always glass half empty when I do the numbers for you, unfortunately. The tax revenues, I'm keeping an eye on them. We have some tax appeals that we're waiting to settle, so I haven't given you a really great number. I do believe on one line we may be 50,000 short, and that's with prior year tax levies. But overall, I'm hoping that we make up for that by the end of the year. That's probably my worst case scenario I'm seeing based on some of the tax appeals that I'm still waiting to have hit our books. Good news, if you go down, is our tiered pilots, which is money that we got from the state. When we did our budget last year, we do adopt our budget in April. The state's not done with theirs, of course. and we based it on the governor's numbers when we do our budget. We're lucky enough that this year they actually gave us $107,000 more than we originally budgeted. So that was a really good thing for us. Further down, another major area is building permits. For the building permits, we built in money for the project going forward for National Welding. I have taken that out there. That is the worst case scenario, that it doesn't happen and we do not collect the budget, the building permits by the end of the year. That could turn around and be a very good story, but since I don't have a date for that or any kind of timeline when they'll start the project, I'm not anticipating it right now before the end of the year. But making up for that and more than looking good is our interest earnings. If you see that line, that's over $1 million favorable. You know, this year we're looking at investments making something we haven't seen in a while, which is over 5% per month. That and the market having a great rebound right now has given us a huge push. That's me being very conservative, saying even if a couple months the market going down, we'll still probably make about $1 million more than we budgeted. And the last number I kind of wanted to discuss on the revenue side was on your second sheet, the cannabis tax. When we did this budget last year, we'd only had a month worth of receipts. It was that we'd received from. We now have 2 facilities. I believe a third one's opening. We're averaging approximately $42,000 a month in revenue from cannabis tax sales. That hasn't slowed down. It's been pretty consistent. I'm only saying that we're going to get $300,000 because I can only put into our operational budgets the amount that would offset human services work in certain areas. I know you heard Carol talk earlier about the work they do regarding the awareness and the cannabis use and everything like that. This revenue will offset a lot of work that she does in her area. Anything over and above that is going to have to go into miscellaneous grants to be used for other areas that is allowed under this cannabis tax law. So we'll keep an eye on that. And as we go over the amount that we can keep in here, we'll let you know. And then at some point we'd have to plan under miscellaneous grants how to use those funds. So overall, as we see revenue, we're looking to come in about a little over 1 million to the favorable side. Once again, that's a very conservative view. It could be even more and better than that, but you never know as we get to the end of the year. I hate to be too optimistic to start the year. For the expense side, we have a couple areas that I'm asking for transfers on. The first one being legal, the town attorney. It's called town attorney, but it's all legal. We had a couple settlements that are going to be under here. We had some increased legal fees. We're looking for a transfer of $113,000 in that area till the end of the year. You will also notice on my sheet, I have not done a estimate because I'm seeing where we'll end up on the town manager's area, but we are seeing other favorable areas and general services. That is our IT and our facilities, and that's due to some vacancies we've had. Under finance, we were favorable, and that was due to the fact that the elderly tax program, we didn't pay out as much as we anticipated. We still want to make a lot more awareness of that program because we don't think people are aware that they have to reapply every year for it. So there's a big push in the assessor's office to do that also. The second area that we're going to need a transfer for is personnel, and we're looking for approximately $10,000 in that area. This is a repeat of the story we did last year. We have a lot of vacancies, and within personnel, we're paying for a lot of the testing for new employees, specifically the police officers. I believe right now we have about 10 vacancies in the police department. For every recruiting class, you have to do all the testing, the polygraph, everything like that. And it can be costly. This has been, as I said, a little bit higher than we usually had seen in the past, but for the last 2 years, due to the vacancies, we've been seeing these high rates in the personnel area. Underneath it, when you go under public safety, overall, we're seeing everything very favorable. In total for public safety, we're seeing it coming in about 163, almost 164,000 favorable. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the police department. Depending on when we fill their vacancies, that number can change up or down. If we fill their vacancies with certified officers, we are required, if that certified officer has less than 2 years of service, to pay back the town that they came from for half their salary and training. So some expenses might hit there. It's just too early to see, depending on who fills the vacancies within the police department. Going down the list, Conservation Commission, we are looking to see a transfer for that for 1,500. It's a very small department, and public notices this year came in a little bit higher than had originally been anticipated. The next area is health services. We have the regional health services. When we did our budget, we built in a increase of 7 to 8% to pay them. They did not approve their budget till after we did. They came in at 10%. So that's the 4,521 we're looking to get transferred. The grounds maintenance, this is Parks and Grounds. We had an ASME contract that was in negotiation when we were doing this budget. It hadn't been finalized. All the other departments, we were able to cover the increase in for the ASME employees within those departments. For grounds maintenance, we were not. So this is a transfer to actually cover their contractual increase in wages that was not included in their budget. And the last expense line that I want to talk about is interest expense. We went out for bonding in May of 2023 after we approved the budget. The interest rates that we ended up getting were a little bit higher than we anticipated, by about $20,000. But the good news is when we went out to bond, we got what we called a premium on our bonds. So they gave us extra money that will cover this transfer. It's coming from the bond project funds that we received. So it's not from our general fund. It's not from our contingency. It's from the extra money that we received when we ought to bond. As I said, overall, we are looking healthy right now. We're looking good. But as I mentioned, one bad snowstorm, more than one bad snowstorm, and stuff like that can deplete some of these departments quite quickly. So those in total, I'm looking for transfers of $168,021. $148,021 would be from the contingency account, and the other $20,000 would be from the from our bond project account. And that kind of sums it up.
Questions from counselors? Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple questions, Janet. Can you just say a little bit more? The money, the $20,000, it's from, you said extra money when we went out to bond. Is that just held in a general account somewhere sitting in a, where is that?
It's the bond premium. So that is actually held in the bond account.
Okay.
That's specific. When we get proceeds from bonding, it all goes into one account and it's held there. It's one where you don't want the interest bearing to be more than the interest you paid. So it's a carefully monitored account.
All right, thank you. And then the only other question I had, and we don't have to get into it tonight, if you could direct, maybe everyone else knows, but where we can look to see what the guidelines or constraints are on what we're allowed to do with the money coming in from the cannabis tax relative to all the needs that we heard articulated earlier this evening for human services, because, you know, part of me wants to do whatever we can for all the folks in need, but do it within obviously the guidelines that are exist. In other words, using those monies properly, are there some guidelines that we need to be reading or constraints as to how much we can spend, where we can spend it?
I'm sorry, Mitch, my internet went out for a second. I'm sorry, I
Oh,
didn't hear the
okay.
beginning of your question.
Yeah, I was just, I perked up around when the cannabis money is coming in at that rate. We heard an earlier presentation from Carol LeBrecq about the obvious needs in town in so many ways. And I would just like, as we head into the budget season, to figure out what are the guidelines and constraints around utilizing that money properly to better meet the needs of our town residents. And so-
I can bring in those rules and regulations. I will also tell you that, and I know Carol's in charge of this, we had an opioid settlement that Carol is also in charge of administering. Those are a couple of different things, the funds money that has some specific restrictions. The only thing that comes to mind right now that I can think of, besides the general functions that Carol's office does regarding substance abuse and education, is some, the one that I remember is actually some infrastructure, and it's to pay for infrastructure around where the facilities, the cannabis facilities are. But I will give you a full list of everything that they say that this money can be used for.
All right, thank you very much. And thanks for all your work on this, as usual.
Councilor Page, Councilor Pacheco?
Yeah, I also had some questions about the cannabis. You said how much a month are we getting?
We average about 42,000 a month.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good chunk of change. And I do remember, because I looked into this about 6 months ago about the restrictions on the use of these funds, and it certainly can't go into the general fund, but it does seem that it doesn't need to be used for new programs. It could go into existing programs, so that in terms of budgeting, we can kind of do some offset, like maybe, put it towards human services, education, whatever. And then that money that would normally be allocated, we can use that for another a need. But I also think, like you said, that not all human resources or dependency education. I think there were some, like you said, some infrastructure, and I'm not sure, there might even be some things regarding police. I'm not sure, some police things due to the fact that, and particularly since now we're gonna have free, retail outlets on the turnpike. It might be good to get their input as well as to how these funds can be used. My second question is, in your intro memo, you indicated, and you also kind of spoke about the, how the police, that we're down 10, but also, the amount of overtime we have, and that they're, you are concerned about the budgeting there and the salaries, but yet I think on your anticipated unencumbered balance as of June 30th, you're still anticipating that we'll have 110,000?
Yes. So with how many vacancies we've had all year, that's causing that more than offsets the overtime right now. But what I'm worried about is what I mentioned before, is that who are we filling the vacancies with? Are we filling them with certified? And if they are certified, are they over 2 years? If they're less than 2 years, we've got to pay for them. And I've seen some of the bills for certified officers under 2 years be in the 30,000 range when we have to pay it. So that's some of the concerns I have, and that's what we're kind of just keeping an eye on.
Okay, so we probably won't have that much of a balance necessarily.
That was a conservative balance when I did it. So I'm still hoping that's what we end up with, but if
things change.
If things change, we gotta just be expecting that that's a volatile number.
Right. It's not even all snowstorms either, as you know, Jana. I'm worried about, the wind tonight.
Yep.
I mean, it just seems that these weather events are getting a little bit more significant. So some of our, the highway and our whatever human services, they're gonna have to be taking a look at some of that. So thank you for your work on this, and thank you for the fact that you did such a good job last year that we're able to be in somewhat good shape midterm.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Janet, for the presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I don't think you're going anywhere. Looks like you have another thing for you here. Next on the agenda is 11C, amend tax fixing agreement for 3313 F 3333 Berlin Turnpike.
Well, I'm actually handing that off to Fauna, who I hope is on the line somewhere.
Oh, no.
There she is.
Sorry,
Fauna.
my video is not working. I apologize. You can hear me though, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so, good evening, everybody, Mayor Trister and councilors. So this request is coming, from the ownership of 3313 through 3333 Berlin Turnpike. That is just the commercial side that you see when you're driving down the Berlin Turnpike. The apartment project portion to the back is its own property with its own tax agreement. So that part's not being discussed and we have not gotten any requests from them. So for this, the commercial side here, February 8th, 2022, they approved the tax fixing agreement. It was for 50% over a total of 10 years. And it was presented as 50% each year. Mr. Engian, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but I apologize. He came to us stating that they had told him that he could probably take the 50% at different stages, but it would always still have to be a 50% overall. So they put together the chart that you see in your packet, where it would start 100% for October 1, 2023 grand list, but still only gets the 10 years. He doesn't get 10 years from the CO or a temporary CO. It would start, the 10 years would start October 1 to 23, and then obviously just run the 10 years to October 1, 2032. So that would be that change. The biggest change would be asking for it to start before a CO or a temporary CO. But he does not get additional years. He still just gets 10. Do you need me to go over the reasons or can you read
Yes,
those?
please.
Sure. Okay. So as you can see, the project is still under construction. The interior of a lot of the buildings when we were out there, September, October timeframe still had to be done. A lot of them did not have floors. The grocer had a lot of work to do at that point. So some of this is notes from Mr. Engian. The Anchor grocery store will most likely not open until sometime in 2025. The building was delivered to the tenant in December 23 and are not required to pay rent for 15 months. The grocer has not completed a final design of the interior of the building or applied for a building permit. They say by their experience, the timeframe to design, permit, and fit out the grocery store would typically take a year. So they do not believe any rent will be received from the largest tenant in 2024. If the Anchor grocery store does not open until 2025, the two national restaurants who are scheduled to open in April of 2024 are only required to pay 50% rent until such time that the co-tenancy with the grocer requirement is met. The other major impact they have experienced are delays caused by the utilities. They feel that this has led to a 3-month delay, which has led to soft cost increase of $100,000 and a loss of 3 months of estimated rent of $400,000. The final major impact to the project has been site disruption from stormwater rain runoff from a neighboring property. There has been an excessive amount of rain over the summer, which has caused an additional 3-month delay due to the inability to complete site work until late fall. And I did see them paving a couple months ago, but so they request the following: the tax fixing agreement to start this past October. So the first time they would see this in their bill would be July of 24. And then adjust the percentages in the chart as follows for still a total overall of 50%. So we're taking more off the front and, graduating off to the lower amounts at the end. So while the net tax agreement or abatement is 50% either way that it's presented, the amount of the tax abatement benefit to the property owner is reduced slightly as the proposed first year. At 100%, the project is only 50% complete. So over the 10-year program, the abatement results in a tax reduction of $2,988,370. And total taxes paid the same of $29,88,370. With the proposed changes, the total tax abatement would be $26,67,690. But they would still pay a total tax of $29,88,370. So they've made this request because they're not really getting any money coming in yet. We told him that we would present this to you as the council, as you're the authorizing authority for any changes that anybody might request.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Eller, for this presentation.
You're welcome.
Can you just, we heard earlier some concerns expressed by the public about potential downsides to this. And again, I hire somebody to do my taxes and finances. I'm no expert on this, so I'm looking to folks in the know about this. Can you just maybe comment about the pros and cons of this proposal? What, in the spirit of it, is the motivation for doing this? In addition to the obvious, we want to have good partners in economic development and with our businesses, and as we look to grow our town responsibly, but also what are the potential downsides? And while some doubt was cast earlier about the veracity of whether or not this will be a net neutral to the town, I don't know if you can speak to that again, just to shed light on that.
From the information that we have at this point, it's not being extended. So we're not adding 3 years to this. It's still only going to be 10. So this is something we already agreed to do, was to give him 10 at 50%. He's just asking for it to start sooner. The net benefit to us as the town is actually a little less. We get a little more money because he's going to be taking one of his 100% amount off the first year. And the property is not complete. We have it in about 50% complete. So it's not even a full bill. So that would be the difference between the two. The other one, let's say it takes them another 2 years to get a CO or a temporary, the program would not kick in until that happens. So it's 6 of what, I don't know if there's really a bad or good. I don't see any negatives for us. For them, they would have to speak as to whether there's a negative on their side.
I appreciate that. I guess in my own mind, and I'll defer to others who have questions, it's on the one hand, if it's a win-win that we can extend good faith to our economic development partners who are investing so much in the town, while at the same time protecting the interest of our residents, and that truly is the net result, then this sounds like a positive thing. I just, there's some anxiety anytime anybody comes to me anyway, I don't know about the rest of you, with proposals to alter multi-million-dollar tax agreements. So I always, get a little anxious and want to make sure, triple check that we're doing due diligence. So thank you very much.
Councilor Page. Councilor Tiniakos.
Theoretically, if we approve this, are there any contingencies to stop this developer from maybe a year later coming back and requesting another change, due to whatever kind of delays might happen in 2025 or whatever?
But
I just want to make sure that.
I think that would be up to you guys. That would be your choice.
Councilor Mankey.
They're certainly not here to digest, and don't pretend to be a smart man, but I assume if the developer is asking us to do this, it's for their benefit as opposed to our benefit. I'm not sure that I'm willing to change the agreement. We made the agreement in good faith. We made the agreement for them to move in, and the reasons that they're delayed are not really our fault. It's not like if this was a thing, we had a problem with zoning, we had a problem with the building permits. we have problem with inspections, that'd be one thing, but these are things that just happen is in the course of building a building. And this is a multi-million-dollar corporation, I'm sure they're used to these things. And so at first blush, I'm not in favor of changing the agreement. I think the agreement was made in good faith back in February, and we should stick to it. I'm also concerned that we set a precedent. So now, everybody else starts coming and say, well, my project's delayed. Now, can I get a tax deferment? Can I change the terms? I think we make the best assumption we can make when we did this back in February of 2023 now. And we kept our part of the deal, and they should keep their part of the deal.
Thank you. Councilor Gonzalez?
I just want to be clear, we're not losing any money by doing this? It all stays the same in the end, or we do lose money?
All we're doing is starting it before he gets a CO. So it's still a 10-year agreement. It would just start with October 1 of 23, which would be this July's bill.
So the end result is the same as
Yeah,
the
it's-
agreement in the first place?
It's still over 10 years and it's still a 50% reduction. Same terms.
But that's over 10 years.
They're both over 10 years.
Right, I understand that, but so we'll collect each month each year the same tax we would collect under the current agreement.
If everything equal. Except for this first year's at 50%.
And I'm confused. Why would they ask for it? I'm sorry.
No.
Why would they then ask for this favor?
They're changing the percentages in your packet. What was presented to them at council in February of 22 was a 50% reduction for each year. Now we've staggered it. So it's 100% in the first year, 60% in the second, 55 in the third, and so on.
Fauna, I'm gonna just jump in for a second, Fauna.
Okay.
Basically what they're looking for, Tim, they're looking to see help right now financially to get this project off the ground. So they're looking to see their tax savings in the first year instead of having more towards the further years going forward.
Right. So they're gonna save taxes the first year.
Yeah.
So we're gonna collect less taxes next year.
But also, Tim, the value of the property for the first year that we're taxing it is only 50% of what we.
It's only 50% of what we could collect, right?
Correct. That we thought we would.
So we do not lose money is the bottom line.
Technically, no.
Technically, no.
In a
but we
whole,
lose money
yeah.
the first year, so that money we could use that money next budget season to offset the budget. And now we're gonna take that away because we're gonna get it 10 years from now.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Sure.
If I follow my reasoning.
Councilor Draco?
No, I appreciate Councilor Page and Councilor Gonzalez. Because the bottom line is Newington is still gonna be getting what? We're not losing anything in this deal. It's just, it's an accelerated when we start collecting the taxes. So this agreement will come to an end sooner than.
No.
No, I think it's the same 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
We're just changing the amounts in the
But it wouldn't
front.
be, but they're not gonna get their CO in October,
Yeah.
whatever. So we really are pushing the 10 years back. So actually, then we'll start collecting the full taxes actually sooner than when we would have anyways. Yeah, as long as, well, I don't know, I guess that was my concern is that Newington is still, the agreement is not harming us. And
Right.
I mean, I agree with the fact about, setting precedents and whatever, but the bottom line is still the same in terms of what we're getting. And this was heralded and touted as one of the biggest developments ever in our town. Not that we should kowtow, but in good faith, it's under construction. It's not like, let's say, other projects we've had where we made abatements for, and there's still a pile of dirt on top of Cedar Mountain. I mean, there's construction going on this I don't know, I mean, I still have to ponder it a little bit, but it seems to be reasonable at least, and not a total unreasonable request, in my opinion.
Thank you, Councilor Rodrigo. Councilor Ford?
I agree, Councilor Rodrigo. I don't think it's especially unreasonable. I also have the similar concerns, particularly around precedent, especially with the pace of development that we are seeing now. You know, I'm concerned about that. So I think there are arguments to be had and discussions to be had. I also think I need some more time to consider this. I'm also concerned, it does seem, you know, reading the narrative that I don't mean that pejoratively, just the narrative that the developer presented, you know, I'm concerned that without adjusting the agreement, that this development is actually at risk, you know, given the significance of some of those holes. So other things to take into account, but I'm also torn as well at this time.
Thank you, Councilor Ford. Deputy Mayor Rada?
Yeah, I just would like some clarification. Fauna, I think you had mentioned that this someone told this developer that this adjustment was possible. Where did that information, who provided that information, or who made that claim? Do you know?
Peter Engian, but I also I did double check with Steve Kosofsky and Keith Chapman, who were instrumental in forming this agreement.
And they were the ones that told Mr. Engian that an adjustment was a possibility if it was necessary?
Or if he
felt it was needed?
Yeah. He was under the impression that he could get 50%. It really didn't matter the structure of what year was getting for 50%. It's just that overall it was a 50%.
All right, because that's, and again, I know we're talking about how this may all shake out in the end, and nobody's gaining, nobody's losing, or we might be gaining, possibly not. But the fact that when this came before us and we called a vote to approve this, that contingency or possibility of shifting percentages wasn't presented to us. It was the 50% 10 years down the line. This concerns me that
I think that was our understanding.
It's a sleight of
provided
hand.
this.
Yeah,
We didn't say anything about you can adjust it
Exactly.
anytime you want.
exactly.
That'd be very irresponsible.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rada. Councilor Nagel?
I just wanted to add my voice that the more I hear about this, the more confusing it gets to make a decision right at this moment. And I'm appreciative of the fact that we have different kinds of facts, one way or the other, and glad that we have more of an opportunity than just to make a decision tonight as to which is the best for us, as well as the developer in some respects, and for Newington and other developers that are already in the works now or maybe in the works, that this decision may be a positive or negative one down the line. So that's just where I stand at the moment. To add my 2 cents worth in.
Councilor Nagel. Councilor Tiniakos?
I might be asking for a lot here, but I don't know if you or anyone in your department is able to populate a comparison with the the original proposal and this new one, so we kind of have an idea about how much revenue we'd get in each fiscal year. If we can get something like that, kind of help us better plan out when it comes to budget and things like that. So if it's doable, I would request that, and if it's not doable, no big deal. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they're already attached in your packet.
I just not looking at the right page. Pictures.
So there's one called retail only approved February 8th of 22. So that's the old version. And then the one retail proposed.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
there's the next page.
Yeah. So we have this.
I just have one question related to the assessment and the values in the assessment. Is that locked in Or could that potentially change as the value of the property goes up and down over the course of the year?
Yeah, that would change if revals come through. Obviously, the mill rate changes, but it's more presented just saying all things equal, this is what we're looking at. There's no guarantees. If he never finishes it, we're not getting it. So, so this is just example purposes. Because reval's coming and we don't know what the market's going to do next year. We don't know what the market will do in 5 years. So it's just more for demonstration purposes.
Certainly. So in that respect, by front loading it, is there potential that we could actually do better on this over time if values increase? I mean, assuming obviously the opposite could be true, but is that a possibility?
It's a possibility, yeah.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from councilors or concerns? No? All right. Thank you so much, Fauna, and thank you so much, Janet.
You're welcome. Have a good
being here
evening.
tonight. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Moving along, next we have annual cemetery fee updates. Jamie, can you give us some information on that? Or is Bill DeMayo that's here? Oh, hello, Mr. DeMayo.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Great. How are you today?
Good. Yeah, just in front of you, I guess, is the proposal for the annual increase of 2% for the cemetery. And I just draw your attention to the cost of fuel going up, and the union contracts this year are 3% increase. And as you know, we use our park staff to maintain the cemeteries, the 3 cemeteries. And the agriculture recommendations or predictions are going to go up between 5 and 15% this year. So we're trying to keep the cemetery's perpetual fund in a healthy situation and anticipate the future so that we can have a pot of money so that when the cemetery is filled, we would have enough money in this perpetual fund to have 2 to 3 park staff available to work the cemetery and maintain it, trim it, provide chemicals, and cut the grass and do our burials. So that's pretty much the short story on that one.
Any questions from councilors?
I mean, 2% in this current climate seems reasonable to me, but I know we're not deciding tonight, but certainly less than the rate of inflation.
Councilor Mankey?
If you say all these things are going up, Bill, is 2% enough?
Yeah.
Should it be 2.5 or 3%? I mean, I understand we want to keep the cost as low as possible. I kind of get that, but I also am concerned that when the cemetery is filled, we don't have enough money in the fund to then continue to maintain it. And then it becomes a drain on the town budget to do that. So I think it's important that we put enough money into the fund when we can, while it's still not empty, but while there's still vacancy. So is 2% enough?
I do believe it is, but I gladly would take more money, but there's a business side to this.
No, Bill, not you.
There's a business side to this. And what we did is we usually compare our surrounding cemeteries in New Britain, Hartford, West Hartford, Rocky Hill, and we try to stay competitive also. So there's a certain amount of can we get some money and also keep going in the right direction? And I think we are. This formula seems to be working. Before I got here, we didn't raise cemetery fees for many, many years. I can't even tell you how far back it went at a 0. So over the last 9 years, we've been trying to go a slow, incremental process to build up our fund. And I think Janet just left, but in over my 9 years, we've got a little over $1 million set aside for perpetual fund. We'd like to shoot for about 3 million. If you can get 4% on 3 million, it's 120 grand. 120 grand gives you about 2 park guys with healthcare benefits and all that. So I think we're on target. I think the formulas will work. I'm confident that 2% on a constant basis, not 2% this year and then nothing for 5 years, but a nice, even, easy, obtainable amount will make the funeral homes that we use workable, and it'll make the people that are buying the graves workable. And I think it'll stay within the rate of the union contracts too. If it doesn't, we always have the right to increase it next year, the year after, whatever, as finance, the economy changes.
Great. Councilor Drago?
Yeah, Bill, I, have no problem with this. And now that you explain it, that you're trying to keep it at 2%. I just was I was questioning, the small print at the bottom, and it says the fees will increase by 2% each year unless otherwise changed by the town manager with the town council approval. Because I remember last year when you came, you proposed this 2% annual, but then we said, I think we want you to come back to the town council every year and just kind of verify that 2% was still reasonable. So I guess I don't have any problem with that little small print at the bottom.
Yeah, just what I was trying to do, Gail, is if I am gone, I would want the new person to be able to have something in place. And if they miss the January deadline to get it to you, it takes us a long time to advertise these rates and notify every single funeral home. And then all the people that are pending to buy lots, this goes into effect in July 1st. So it takes us about 6 months. So I'm always trying to forecast the future. That's the name of this business. But I could do whatever you guys want. If you don't want to do it every year, that's fine too.
I think this is fine. It was just, again, that little note at the bottom, but then it jogged my memory as to why we had it.
Yeah, James, it was a technicality too. I think James brought to my attention. I didn't put that note on the memo and in the motion. So that was my faux pas possibly. So I put it everywhere this time. So everyone would know.
Yeah, I have another, and it's kind of related, I guess, because you said you're, looking to the future and trying to set up a fund or whatever. I mean, I walk a lot, and sometimes my walk takes me through the West Meadow Cemetery, and it does seem to be filling up quite quickly. I mean, what's going to happen? Is part of this money being set aside to purchase another piece of land, or are we just going to, I'm just curious.
Yeah, Tim Menke was asking me that the other day. We probably have a little over 4,000 buried there at West Meadow Cemetery right now. But what's happening is the cemetery business is changing rapidly because the Catholic Church accepts ashes now, and because it's becoming a more popular thing to be cremated. More people are doing it. It's almost a 50-50 percentage now of burials and full body burials. So I think we've extended our years at West Meadow Cemetery considerably. We're in the process right now of finding out how many lots are unsold. We're doing a study, and this is going to take several months, but we're doing a study on how many lots are unsold. Then we're going to predict an average how many ashes can be buried in each of the plots. So for instance, I'll give you an example. My father-in-law bought 3 sets of double burials in section B. So that normally was going to be only 6 bodies. But now if you did ashes, you can put 4 in each of the 3 spots. So now you've got 4, 8, 12 instead of 6. So all of a sudden you doubled the amount that you can accept at West Meadow Cemetery. So my best guess right now off the top of my head, and there's no statistics yet, but I do plan on proving it, that we should bring in more like 15 years out, bare minimum, I think, to before we fill up. So we still have some time.
Super, okay, thank you.
Okay.
I got contours.
You get it. Any other questions from councilors? Thank you so much, Mr. Domino, for being here tonight.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good night.
You too, definitely take care. Moving on, next on the agenda is written and oral communications from the town manager.
Thank you. It's been a busy 3 weeks, and I have some items that I'd like to touch upon this evening, some important items to bring to your attention. The first is the town manager's monthly reports being posted on the town website. A couple of folks in town the past couple of days brought it to our attention that the town manager's reports, and I believe the annual reports, are not currently on the town's website. We found out that they were no longer on the website as of sometime in the summer, we believe July or August. Respectfully, that is information that should be available to the public to review the town manager's reports. So I did ask the IT department to restore those on the website. They have done so through May, which is around the time that they were not on the website any longer. But the department heads have continued to complete their reports every month. So we have reports up through current, which I believe the reports for December are due like at the end of this week. So we would have the reports through November. The staff member who is responsible for compiling those reports and putting them on the website is on a family leave for a couple of days. When she returns, then we'll catch up. So you'll have those. And then the same thing for the annual reports. Those are quite a bit more complex to compile, but there's a current memo out for town staff to get the most recent one put together, and we'll get it published as well. Along those lines, there was a phone call today from a resident asking about the town council agendas and the related packet materials being posted on the town website when the agendas are posted, which is typically the Friday before Tuesday meeting. In my past time, when I last worked with the town council in 2017, the practice then was to compile the packet materials, and then it would be sent to the town council. It was the agenda itself, the 2-page agenda would be sent to the town clerk for posting as required. The town council packet materials would go to the council when it was done on Friday. And then once you would receive it electronically. Once it was received, a little later on that day, we would post the entirety of the agenda packet and materials onto the town website on the same day. It would just be a little later that day. I don't know when or why that changed, but if the council concurs, we can revert back to that process. So that's website items. I do want to update you on some personnel items. The first being the police chief process, hiring process. This was almost immediately identified as a priority. So the first round of panel interviews for the police chief hiring process took place on December 6th, about a week prior to Mr. Hutka's leave beginning. We didn't have any substantial direction on how to proceed, that we were aware of how to proceed with the process that had been planned already based on that first round of interviews. As you know, selecting the right candidate for this position is vital. We need to take, the utmost care with it. It's critical for the good of the department and the town. So I've made it a priority to continue with this process so that we're not leaving people hanging and so that the position can be filled. But I did want to take a little bit of time to make sure that how we proceed with the process in absence of any kind of instruction before is correct and thorough as possible and is accordance with any state statutes that might be in place or best practices. So I've been working on that pretty often over the past couple of weeks, and we will be ready most likely by the end of this week to proceed with the next steps of the process. And by proceed, I mean arrange for the next steps of the process and notify the candidates of the next step of the process and schedule the corresponding interviews. The police superintendent had reached out to the candidates to let them know the process was on hold, and I do want to apologize for any delays. We will communicate to the candidates as soon as I have something to give them, and that will proceed. The director of facilities, next topic. At the end of last month, the previous director of facilities, Mr. Joe Salamone, requested to rescind his resignation from last October. The position had never been filled and was never posted for consideration. After considering several points and doing some due diligence, I opted in my capacity as the personnel director to accept his request to rescind, and he returned to duties with the same responsibilities and compensation as he had prior. This happened last week. We're pleased to welcome back. But I also want to take the opportunity to thank John Kabachka, who had been acting as a facilities director for the past couple months, and he did a fantastic job. He faced challenges very well, and he will be returning to his previous role as project manager for the town. I just want to state this publicly, just in case, just for public information, that while I am the acting town manager, the Barbara Wolmer is the acting director of the Senior and Disabled Center. It'll be for the same duration as that I'm here. Although I am retaining a few of my responsibilities and some projects over there that just make more sense logistically for me to retain. She is handling the day-to-day projects of the center, and she is an absolute godsend running the show. We really appreciate her being there. So I just wanted to let you know if if anybody has any concerns or questions or needs to reach out to the Senior and Disabled Center, please contact Barb Wilmer. The eligibility program coordinator position, which you just approved the updated job description tonight. This is similar information that I gave to the Commission on Aging Disabled meeting last week, so I apologize for the repeat. Karen Halpert retired on January 2nd. She was the person in the position prior, and she'll definitely, obviously, can't say enough, she will be missed. The hiring process has begun or is in progress with that. We expect to reach out for candidates who will be interviewed, and the interviews will take place next week. I want to make it clear to anybody who may be concerned about things falling through the cracks in Karen's absence in terms of one of the most important things she does this time of year is the Energy Assistance Program, where she assists applicants in their households. They may be older adults, but they also may be families or younger folks. She assists them with gathering information and creating and submitting applications for energy assistance to the funders. Pursuant to how her work ethic, she took appointments up till her last day. There is a gap between obviously when we'll have the new person in place. So we do take it very seriously. We don't want a single person to miss out on missing a benefit. So there is in place right now. Karen, we couldn't convince her to stay home with her family forever. She's going to work one day a week to help take appointments. We also have some help from a member of Human Services who's kind enough to help on her off hours, and then another person who has some experience with that, who currently works for the Housing Authority, who will work a couple days to take appointments as well. So we want to assure the public that if you're looking for an appointment in January or February, we've got you covered, and we will continue. There will be no stopping of service for that project or for that particular program. The administrative secretary, long-term administrative secretary in the Newington Police Department, has recently retired after many years of service. And we are currently in the hiring process. That is a union hiring process. So there's specific steps related to that. In the interim, we have a previously retired administrative assistant from the police department who has unretired and come back part-time. And she is a wealth of knowledge, particularly in the realm of budgeting. So it's a great time to have her, and she is filling in and helping us out while we continue with this process. There are some other open positions that have been open for some time. We are accepting applications for the assistant building official and the assistant town engineer. Those are specialized positions that have proven difficult to fill, but will continue to do so. Carol LeBrecq mentioned earlier, the youth program coordinator position will be in place shortly. We really look forward to that. And as mentioned by Janet Murphy earlier, there's always vacancies in the Newington Police Department kind of on a rolling basis that we address. Is it appropriate if I ask if you have any questions before I move on? Okay. Before I move to the next topic? Okay.
I'm not asking you to respond to this tonight, just because it's unfair. I haven't asked you in advance, but regarding the website, I know you've got so much going on and your staff is so busy. Any ongoing efforts to tweak our website to make it as user-friendly as possible when people get on to the page and then access various services, we appreciate very much and look forward to that continued work. I know you guys are very well aware of that. And then the only other thing I would say is, I've said it before, we've made use of the Citizens Oil Co-op. It's an organization which negotiates with oil companies and gets the harbor rate, and people can take part in that for both oil and propane, and it will save you a few bucks on oil. It was saved us. So it's something you can just investigate, and if you just choose to do it, that's up to you. If not, it's fine. So I just throw it out there.
One last thing. Winter storm coming to. I don't know if it's. I guess it's technically a winter storm. It's going to be rain. As you are aware, we're expecting heavy rains, 3 to 5 inches on top of melting snow, and some potentially damaging winds later tonight and overnight into tomorrow. Whenever there's a significant storm expected, the staff, led by our emergency manager director, DJ Zorden, they keep tabs of this and they keep the staff appraised and the public appraised as necessary with any related updates from the state. We also touched base briefly earlier with our staff liaison from Eversource, who works at Eversource. And they have assigned a staff member to be in contact with us as a liaison, starting early in the morning in regards to the timing of the storm, any concerns related to power outages. Town staff, as usual, ramps up their operations and doing things like clearing out the storm drains from any leaves or whatever to try to hopefully minimize flooding. And obviously, everybody stay safe. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to council liaison and committee reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Council Rodrigo.
Yeah, just really quickly, for the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, tomorrow there's a continuation of the public hearing for the drive-through Dunkin' Donuts on the corner of Cedar Street and Constance Lee. There's some interesting discussions at the last meeting regarding this, particularly in terms of pedestrian access, because, you know, there's the senior housing, the senior disabled housing there, and that the Constitution Square parking lot and Cedar Street, whatever, has a confluence of cars at times, and particularly Dunkin' Donuts is so popular. So the developer agreed to kind of go back and maybe add some sidewalks or something. But also at the meeting, I don't know if that was meeting and meeting before, the new officers of TPZ were elected. So Stan Sobieski will be the chair, Steve Woods is the vice chair, Gia Pasquarelli is the secretary, and the CROG representatives are Steve Woods and Gia Pasquarelli. Now regarding conservation, the only thing to report is, again, they had elections. So the new chair of conservation is Jeff Zellick. The vice chair is Dave Womet, and the secretary is Bernadette Conway.
Council Nagel.
Thank you. To add on to what Jamie's already said about the senior center, and we had a meeting on the 3rd. There was a quorum, so there was a meeting. And they reviewed what happened in December at the senior center. I think most important of the great amount of things that are happening this coming month is a fraud workshop for seniors to learn, to be aware of and to learn about different kinds of fraud. So they are prepared in case something of this nature comes their way. It's on the 21st. You have to sign up for it. We got an update on the window project, ongoing window project. And also I found very important a security assessment of the building, which the state will, if I'm correct, will fund and we'll be able to determine what steps need to be taken for that building to make it safe. Break-ins, and also for seniors to make everyone feel more safe, that is a secure, safe place to go. And also attended the library meeting last night. Deputy Mayor Rada was there as well. Winter reading program for adults and children starts on February 1st, just to oversee some things. State money that came to the library, we were informed, was to work on reposition space and for minor furniture and renovations. The Winterfest is sold out once again in January. The Friends of the Library, among other things, gave a report to the library board saying their next book fair is May 2nd and 3rd. That's the first weekend in May. A lot more information was given in terms, they discussed their lookbook, which they're going to give us for their plans for renovating and enlarging the library, and that is way off. And last but not least, once again, the library's road race is May 19th. And that's it.
Councilor Tiniakos.
Yeah, I was able to speak to one of the board members on the EMS board, and they just shared some concerns about Hartford Healthcare trying to come into town and kind of take over all of the first responding that we have here from our EMS department. So I'm hoping to get together with the chief. Hopefully, going to reach out to him this week and possibly get him to come speak to us as a whole, or just sit with him one-on-one. But I just want to bring it to light that what was expressed to me is that if Hartford Healthcare was to take over, response time would be increased pretty dramatically, and then the cost per ambulance ride would also increase. So I'm working on getting more information on that, but just wanted to get it out there.
Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Councilor Nagel had to say regarding the library. I did raise the issue, or it's not really an issue, but possibility of all of us, even those of us, there are several of us who know the library pretty well, but that we set up a schedule, a time or times to go over to the library and get a tour by the library director or assistant director. Lisa Maston said that probably a Saturday morning prior to, I think Dave, I think that's what she suggested, was prior to the opening of the library might be a good time to do that. And it would be a real behind the scenes tour. So we'll work on that and see what people's schedules are. And I just think from what they told us that hasn't been done in a while. So I think it would be quite interesting and a lot of fun. There's some nooks and crannies that some of us still have not been to. So yeah, we'll work on that.
Deputy Mayor Rada, anything else to report, councilors? No? All right, moving again on to public participation in general. If you're in the room and like to speak, please feel free to come up. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand and we'll get you. Excellent.
I know it's late, so I apologize, but I've got to respond to what I heard tonight. It's not an intentional misrepresentation by the developer for 333 or by the town assessor, but they're getting it wrong. The contractor is trying to start the clock now in 10 years. And I agree, in those 10 years, net at the bottom, it is neutral. But the clock should not start now. We should be collecting taxes based 100% on the assessment. They're 38% complete now, so we should get 38% of those taxes. If a year from now, if they're 50% complete, it doesn't start until they get a CO. And you have no obligation to give them this money. And I believe there's been some comments about they may walk from the project. That's not going to happen. They're a big company. You're actually giving them an incentive to delay the project. Because not getting the CO, they start now at the reduced rate. They'll be paying, they're not paying the taxes that are due before the CO. Right. I don't believe this is all intentional on their part or by the assessor, but they're just not getting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. On Zoom, we have one more there. Go ahead, Ms. Lyons.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. First of all, I'd like to thank Councilor Rada for the clarification on where the scoreboard was going to be located, and also Councilor Gonzalez with her comments about the affordable housing. I, as a single parent 35 years ago, I would have been very happy to have moved into a project area like Cedar Point. As it turns out now, they're actually opening up some of the units for low-income residents. I don't know whether it's for Newington or everywhere around. It all depends on the funding, I guess. But I think we all need a little bit of an education on that. And excuse me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Councilor Banakis. I'm very happy to see that you reached reached out to the gentleman who has been very vocal on Facebook regarding the EMS issues. I don't believe he's using his correct name on Facebook, but by you reaching out to him and him talking to you, I think that bringing someone forward from the EMS committee or the chief or whoever to the town council, it would be better for the residents to see and hear what has to be said rather than just reading it on Facebook. The ARPA funds, probably Jamie is the only other person sitting at this table or at your table that can appreciate my feelings towards the ARPA funds, because they're starting to look like CIP funds to me. And I'm glad that you're holding off to vote on the proposed appropriations. In the beginning, it was said that the town manager would make the decisions as to where the monies were spent, and he did on some, and others he brought to the town council. There was also certain parameters that the monies could be used for, and then it was broadened, I believe, according to what Janet had told us. So many things have changed since this $8 million was allocated to us. But the only thing I think that has not changed is that this money doesn't have to be spent until December of 2024. Last year, we spent $4 million of it at the discretion of the town manager with the approval of the town council, and I believe there was almost $2 million used on ARPA funds. The town council withdrew the money from the capital improvement projects and paid for them out of ARPA funds. One of the main things that the survey that was done with residents, the main complaint was about the website. And I'm glad that Councilor Page brought that up as well. I did write to the pending town manager, Mr. Hutka, and I don't know where his situation is right now. But in any case, I wrote to him when he was our town manager, and I asked him what was going to be done about the website. He assured me that he had staff working on the issues, and he was going to have the problems already for them to be presented to a professional once the professional was called in. I see no money in the ARPA funds being allocated for that. Maybe in the CIP it'll be in there. I don't know. But we only have another couple of months of budget proceedings, and I think by April you have to have some sort of CIP budget. I'm hoping that we're not going to see monies taken out of CIP or money taken out of CIP and then be put again into ARPA funds. I'm just so totally confused as to what you can do and can't do. And I've watched it for 2 years. Most of you on the council are new. I'm glad once again that you're going to wait, take some time, look at it. I think I'm going to ask for a breakdown of where the previous monies have been spent. I'm just curious as to what departments got the most and what they got the monies for. It seems
Sorry,
to
Ms.
me
Lyons,
that there was-
you're over about a minute. If it's okay, to
Oh,
wrap
I'm
it up.
sorry.
You're-
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
There's no bar. No
Well, I
problem.
think what you have to do is put the bar at the bottom of the TV screen so I can keep an eye on it. I can't do 3 things at once. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room or over Zoom that would like to participate in public participation? All right. Moving on to remarks by councilors. Councilor Nagel.
Very briefly, a few things that have come to my attention. Some of them are rhetorical questions. So I don't expect answers tonight. From the public, there's been some questioning or concern about the status of the CERT team and what actually it does and where it is at the moment. Perhaps at a meeting soon, we could have those in charge come and give us an update as to the status and what they do, or if what they are doing has changed in some respect from what the original creation of it was for. Given that and other things, there have been some problems people have had, and I've had too, in terms of getting communications, in terms of when certain meetings are taking place or not taking place. I'm not sure where the problem is. It's not everything, but that is true. I would say for anyone who's going to be on a on a committee from the public or whatever, make certain you don't take two that meet at the same time. Things have changed and that has happened in several cases. In my case, I'm on the Anna Reynolds committee, and I don't know when they meet at what time in the month. It would be great if we could get some kind of chart in terms of if it meets at a regular time each month for everyone. Speaking of chart, I don't believe we ever got a contact chart early on. I know some of us were questioning about, can I have your phone number? Can I whatever? And I had said, well, there's going to be a chart that comes out for everyone. It's one chart. Yeah, that'd be good. That has that out. And I don't know if one has come out. I don't remember. And I wouldn't expect Jamie, you to have. So that would be great if we could have that kind of thing. It'd be one thing in one source, even though it's in print, you may have it on the phone, but still it's nice to have what numbers, what and whatever, and also what we wish to keep private for ourselves as opposed to communications from the general public for whatever reason. Has a directory come out for this year? Another rhetorical question, or not? If you could look into that, every year or almost every year, a booklet has come out with a directory for the public as well as us as to what the phone numbers are for various different departments. It would be nice if we haven't gotten that. I don't think we have that, and that it'd be available to the public if they wish it. It's nothing new. It's something that has been done. And I believe that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Nagel. Deputy Mayor Rada.
Oh, okay. Two things. Councilor Nagel, we welcomed you at the last meeting, I think, for the Anna Reynolds Building Committee. That meets at 5:15 on the first and the third Thursday of the month. Again, we can discuss when a good time would be to invite Chairman Woods to come and give a presentation. Every time we meet, we are treated to photos, and things are moving along amazingly well. Everything is on track. But we're online for budget. We're online for time frame, and I think it would be nice to have him come and speak to this and also present so that the community can hear that. One other question I have, or it's partly a concern, and it relates to the website, which is none of our faces are up there. We've got big round circles for each one of us, and I think it would be great if whether we all get photographed. I know, Scott, you photographed some of us the last time around, folks that didn't have previous photos, but somehow work it out so that there are faces to the names of the mayor and town council who are currently sitting in these positions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rada. Councilor Plug.
Yeah, first, I just want to thank Dave and Rose for speaking this evening. Public participation is always deeply appreciated, and I know you and Rose are some of our most active participators, and we so appreciate it. And again, thank you for your work in presenting those numbers to us that are going to be very useful. So thank you. I wanted to go in a different direction because about a month or so, just over a month or so ago, we lost in our community a real institution, someone who has devoted so much of themselves to this community. I'm talking about Dr. Bill Haynes, who passed, I believe, on December the 5th. And if you aren't familiar with Dr. Haynes, I'm sorry, because, for those who knew him, he was a man of service and of deep gratitude and kindness. So Dr. Haynes, owned and operated the Hartford Veterinary Hospital on the Berlin Turnpike for 59 years of his life. and was a lifelong advocate for animals in this community, really stepped up to help oftentimes folks that did not have the means to care for their dearly beloved pets, and would comfort them nonetheless, be there for them in their moment of grief and of challenge and in greatest need, and still be able to offer service to them while other veterinary hospitals may have turned them away. Dr. Haynes, brought a lot of pride to this community, not just because of that day-to-day service, but also because of the significant positions of consequence that he held too. He was the first vet of the year from Connecticut. He was the president of the Connecticut and the New England Veterinary Medical Associations at points in his life. Was a member of the board of directors for Newington Children's Hospital, where he helped establish and move forward a pet therapy program, and was also the former president of the Newington Rotary Club, to add more to his plate. So I think we ought to all emulate Dr. Haynes's incredible life of service to our community, to our neighbors. And I just wanted to honor him here tonight. And I've been praying for his family as they mourn his loss. And I hope others will join me in doing the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I just want to take a couple of minutes just to, I said this on Talk to the Mayor yesterday, but I want to shout out Rob Hillman and our folks at Highway Department. They did a great job over the weekend cleaning up the snow. I know it had been a while since we'd had to dust off the plows, so they did a great job getting out there, doing it. Everyone understand they were out there again today, clearing out all the drains to make way for all this water. We're really grateful for the efforts that you all put in, and I hope everyone stays safe tonight and dry, hopefully. So we just really grateful for everyone involved. So thank you for that tonight. It's been a great meeting. Finally, moving on now, we are moving on into executive session. Counselor Page, would you please read the resolution?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 1-206C, hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members, the mayor, Jamie Trevethan, acting town manager, Lauren Rhymes, director of administrative services, DJ Zordan, emergency management director, and Joe Salomon, facilities director, to discuss a public safety matter, emergency operations.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yes.
We sound the same. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We can take like a quick 5 minutes, right?
File break?
Yes, please.